Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Lost Ddraig and Got Crazy Split Personality Disorder movie. Before we start, please go support isonku-sen for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistaken character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Chapter 1. Of Issei. After locking up the Trihexa once again, everything was peaceful. The girls and I got married, and after a while I became a high-class demon. After that I started living in the underworld, and there finally the world, both human and supernatural, was at peace. That's what I would have liked to happen. Why, what actually happened was that. Flashback, still Issei's POV. After locking up the Trihexa, everything was fine, so to speak, since there was no attack from anyone during that time. The bad thing is that the girls I loved distanced themselves from me and started spending more time with my brother Isaac. At first I thought it was to get to know each other better, since before this they barely knew each other. This is Issei. But what I found strange was that they ignored me every time I wanted to go out or spend time with them, and when they didn't ignore me they were always upset or tired, and every time I offered to help them at some point they told me that they would ask Issei. That made me sad, but at the same time it seemed strange to me. But what I saw one day broke me completely. Flashback, still Issei's POV. The chestnut tree was entering through the door of his mansion. He was very nervous because he had something prepared for his girls. Issei. Come on Issei, you have to have enough courage to do it. He said to himself in his mind, but his nerves wouldn't go away. Until he heard strange noises coming from his room, which was on the second floor. The higher I went the noises became louder. When he was in front of the door he began to feel a pain in his chest and began to get scared. When he opened the door a little he saw something that made something in him break. What he saw was his girls having sex with his brother in his bed. That made Issei not stop shedding tears. The now shattered chestnut just walked away from the door, still shedding tears full of pain, and leaving the mansion and heading to a dumpster. Once in front of the container, he proceeded to take out of his pocket some golden rings with a diamond in the center of each one. Issei didn't care and threw them into the trash, still remembering what happened a few minutes ago. Time skip 1 week. Issei's situation continued. Issei's now ex-girlfriends were still with his brother Isaac, but this isn't over yet. Issei was lying in the room very depressed. Until out of nowhere he starts vomiting a large amount of blood. Issei. What's going on? He said on the ground, wiping the blood from his mouth. In his left hand, a green gem appears. Ddraig. Mate, what's happening to you is very unfortunate. He said in a sad tone. Issei. Ddraig, what's happening to me? He asked worriedly. Ddraig. It is a characteristic of the dragon race. Issei. What do you mean? Ddraig. Well, what's happening to you is the effect of the dragon's fall disease. He said seriously. Issei. Dragonfall. And why did I get sick? He asked, still worried. Ddraig. Well, the reason you have the disease is because you were deceived by your females, and because of the depression you felt your power became a very powerful poison. Normally a dragon that is betrayed by his female suffers the fall at a slow pace, but since you have more than one female, the process accelerates, making it more painful until you die from it. The silent dragon finished explaining. At that statement, the chestnut tree became even more worried. Issei. And there is no way to cure her? He asked with some hope. Ddraig. Well, the only way is to do a ritual that, sincerely, due to your physical condition, I don't think you can handle. He said seriously. Issei. Damn, instead of being involved in my perversions I could have trained to become stronger, I'm stupid. He screamed in frustration at not being able to do anything to save his own life. Dragon, Pyro. Issei, Pyro. He asked with a small glimmer of hope. Ddraig. Since you are not a dragon at all, you could leave your body and thus nullify the disease, but that will only work if you wanted to. He said seriously. Issei. But wouldn't that kill me? He asked, somewhat scared. Ddraig. That is only if it is extracted from you, but if you do it voluntarily, it will only leave you very tired and weak, because all connection with the dragon race would disappear from you, including your power. He said more seriously. Issei. I see, but I don't want you to go, after all you are the only one I can talk to, since no one pays attention to me, they just ignore me. He said sadly. Ddraig. Understands, if I stay you will die, and you don't want that, right? Asked the dragon. Issei. No, I don't want to. He said more sadly. Ddraig. Then I have to go. He said seriously. Issei. But who will you go with? He asked intrigued. Issei. You can come with me. He said from behind Issei. He was surprised to see his older brother. Issei. You heard everything, right? He asked seriously and annoyed by his presence. Issei. That's right, and I would like you to come with me. He said with a small smile. Issei. What do you think, Ddraig? He asked, looking at the gem on her hand. Ddraig. Well, that sounds good to me. He said calmly. The brown-haired boy was surprised since he never thought that Ddraig would want to go with the one who caused the disease in the first place. Issei. I won't be able to change your mind, well, it's your decision so, goodbye partner. He said sadly and somewhat annoyed. Ddraig. Likewise, but well Issei extends your left hand. He said seriously so that the aforementioned knows what he said. Ddraig. Okay, now you Yasaka, do the same. He said that the aforementioned should do the same as his brother. At that Issei puts his hand on top of his brother's to see a green glow. The brightness was so strong that it blinded them for a few seconds. When the glow dissipated, you could see an Yasaka with the red emperor dragon gauntlet on his left arm. Issei. Well, I don't have the disease anymore. He asked intrigued. Ddraig. You don't have it anymore. He said something happy. Issei. Well, I'm leaving. He said getting up with difficulty and going to his room. And that's how the now ex-Sekiryuutei ended up in his current situation. Being ignored by friends and family. But the latter always ignored him since his brother Isaac was always their parents' favorite since they were children. Then flashback. At this moment Issei is lying in his bed. Issei. Seriously, everything has changed since Ddraig left with Yasaka. He said sadly and shedding some tears. Chapter 2. The days passed and the chestnut was getting worse and worse. Since Ddraig left with Issei's older brother, everyone he considered friends replaced him with him. Well, he did not leave his room at that time. Currently. The brown-haired boy was lying in his bed, looking up at the ceiling of his room with dull eyes and dark circles under his eyes that clearly said he hadn't slept in days. Until he found himself in his subconscious while walking in a blank place, holographic screens were formed showing the good times he spent with his now ex-friends, along with the faction leaders. That made him forget his pain and a happy smile formed on his face. But that happiness was gone because those scenes were replaced by the scene of the women he loved having sex with his older brother, whom he loved and admired so much. That made her kneel down, holding her head with both hands while she tried to cry, but it was useless because after crying for days on end, it was as if all the tears she had run out. The more I listened to what was happening in the scenes, the less sane I was. And every time he lost his sanity the place turned into darkness. Until nothing could be seen, only an Issei who was still on his knees looking down. Until. Wow, it's pathetic to see you like this, but at the same time it's funny. Said a voice just like the chestnuts. Issei. Who's there? Where are you? The brown-haired boy asked alarmed. This way. He said making the brown-haired boy turn around. Issei was surprised to see a boy like him in every way, except that he was wearing a black jacket, a black shirt with a tie on top and on the bottom black pants and black shoes. He was sitting on a chair with his legs crossed. Issei. Who are you? He asked nervously. Me? No one in particular, just a part of you that wants to see this world shattered, just like you are the part of me that wants the opposite, but you call me Rick. He said with a devilish smile that scared the brown-haired boy. Issei. What do you mean? He asked with fear in his voice. Rick. As I said, I am part of you and you are part of me, in short, I am you and you are me. He said still with his smile. Issei. Are you me? I don't understand. Issei said confused. Rick. Well, I didn't expect you to, but you'll understand in time. He said getting up from his chair approaching the brown-haired man who was retreating still on the ground. Issei. And what do you want? Rick. Well, make you see that you did wrong by joining them. He said the last thing with repulsion. Issei. What do you mean I did wrong by joining them? He asked confused. Rick. Well, they used you from the beginning, including that cheap dragon. He said seriously. Issei. But Ddraig didn't do anything to me, he left to save my life. He shouted angrily. Rick. Seriously? So answer me this. Wouldn't he have saved your life anyway if he had warned you about the disease before? I asked still calm. That left the chestnut tree silent. Rick. That's what I thought. He said with a smile. Issei. But why did you choose me? He asked almost whispering, but the other brown-haired man heard him perfectly. Rick. Who knows, maybe he thought you would live up to his expectations, but since you didn't, he kept that about the illness to himself. He said putting his hands in his pockets. The brown-haired boy couldn't believe it, he always thought that Ddraig was the only one he could count on in difficult times, in good times and bad, he thought he would be with him, not only because he was in his body, but because he really thought he was his friend, but it seems that was just a facade. Rick. And not just him, but the Gremory and his whole group. Issei. What? Rick. What? Didn't you notice? You're a fool if you want to. He said annoyed. Issei. What do you mean? He asked more confused. Rick. Have you ever wondered why you were reincarnated? He asked seriously. The brown-haired boy thought but only had one answer to give. Issei. No. He said looking down. Rick. She knew from the beginning that a fallen angel was going to kill you, and what did she do? She just waited until you were 1 second away from dying to reincarnate you without you having any opinion, and why? Just because she saw a sacred gear in you. If it weren't for that she would have abandoned you like she did now. He said, very angry and with hatred in his voice. That left Issei in shock. He never stopped to think why he was reincarnated in the first place. Since being a pervert, he only thought lewd things, instead of stopping to think about something as important as that. Issei. Why? The brown-haired boy whispered with a very strong pain in his chest. Rick. Because you are weak, that kindness as well as your perversion made you weak. He said seriously. Rick. And the others are not far behind. Look at everything you did for everyone, and look how they replaced you with your brother. Do you think it's fair that they pay you that way? He asked angrily. Issei. It's not fair. He said weakly. Rick. What did you say? Issei. It's not fair. He said a little louder. Rick. I still can't hear you. Issei. It's not fair. The chestnut tree shouted furiously. Rick. That's what I wanted to hear. He said with a smile. Issei. And what will I do now? He asked with his eyes on the ground. Rick. Well, you have 2 options. 1. Continue as you are, being a weak and useless being, or 2. Join me and show everyone that they made a grave mistake by replacing you. He said seriously. Issei. I choose the second option. He said seriously. Rick. Excellent answer. He said, giving him his hand to get up. The brown-haired boy accepted his help without hesitation, standing up in front of Rick, who looked at him with a smile. Issei. And what will I do in the meantime? He asked curiously. Rick. Well, the first thing is for you to take a bath, and tomorrow you will start training. He said, staring at the brown-haired boy, who just nodded. Rick. Well, wake up. At that he snapped his fingers, and as soon as he finished doing so, Issei woke up suddenly in his bed. Then he looked at his watch and saw that he had been up all night talking to Rick. Issei. I think it was just a dream. He said, something agitated. Rick. I wouldn't say that. Said from Issei's mind, something that scared him. Issei. Where are you? He asked nervously. Rick. Calm down, I'm on your mind. He said mockingly. Issei. Oh, I see. He said, calming down. Rick. Well, go take a bath, you stink. Issei. Bien. It was the last thing he said before leaving his room, and seeing that there was no one there, he proceeded to go take a bath. Chapter 3. Once Issei took a bath, he grabbed a towel and wrapped it around his waist. After that he went to a bathroom mirror to look at himself. But he was in for a big surprise when he saw Rick instead of him. Rick. Hey buddy. He said with a smile. Issei. Rick, what are you doing? He asked nervously. Rick. Nothing, I just wanted to go out for a moment. He said, still with his smile. Issei. I see, and now what do we do? He asked curiously. Rick. Let's take a walk around the city since it's very boring to be here all day. He said with boredom. Issei. Okay, but first I'll go put on some clothes. He said, leaving the bathroom and heading to his room. Time skip. You could see how the chestnut was about to come out but was stopped by Rick. Rick. Wait, before we go out I want to tell you that while you're on the street, talk to me through your mind, because I don't want people to see you as crazy. He said, manifesting himself in the same clothes he had when they first met while standing in front of Issei. Issei. Okay. He said calmly and then left his mansion. As they walked through the crowded streets, the brown-haired man spoke to Rick mentally until he decided to ask a question. Issei. Hey, can the others see you too? He asked, seeing him. Rick. Well, yes and no. He said carefree. Issei. I don't understand. He said confused. Rick. Well, let's put it this way, when other people see you they also see me, but they don't focus on me but on you. Issei. I still don't understand. He said, more confused. Rick. You have to figure it out for yourself, I don't always have to explain it to you. He said, something annoying. Issei. Well, don't get angry. Rick. But don't make me angry. Issei. By the way, what kind of training will I do tomorrow? The brown-haired boy asked curiously. Rick. For now I'll tell you who will do physical training. He said calmly. Issei. Just that. Rick. That'll be the first thing, then we'll try to get rid of those pesky pawn pieces. He said, annoyed. Issei. Oh. Right, I forgot that I was still that Redeed's dear. He said angrily in his mind and clenching his fists. Rick. Calm down, buddy, you'll find a way to get them out and then we'll be free and we won't have to follow anyone's orders. He said with a sinister smile. Issei if you say so. He said calming down a little. Rick. Well, it's getting late and tomorrow you have to go to the academy. He said calmly. Issei. But why do I have to go? Rick. Why didn't you go in a week? Issei. You already look like my mom. He said comically. Rick. Shut up. He shouted angrily. Issei. You know that if you silence me you are also silencing yourself, since as you say I am you and you are me. He said with a mocking smile. Rick. Idiot, do you think you're so funny? He shouted angrily and with a vein in his forehead. Issei. Okay, calm down, let's go. He said with a nervous smile. I'm skippy. The chestnut was in his room cleaning it. Issei. I'm done. He said, looking at his spotless room. Rick. Well, now I just want to tell you that no one can know what you're training. He said in a serious way. Issei. Why? Rick. Remember, if that Redeed finds out you're training, she can send that Nekomata to keep an eye on you. He said still serious. Issei. You're right. He said seriously. Rick. Okay, now what do you want to do? I asked curiously. Issei. Now that I remember, Zersich told me that in one of the underground floors is a very large training room. Rick. And you saw it? Issei. No, at that time I was so involved in perversion that I never had the interest to train unless there was a rating game. He said embarrassedly. Rick. Well, those days are over, since you're going to train all the time, everyone has some free time, even if it's just a few minutes. You're going to make the most of it. He said seriously. Issei. All the time? Don't you think it's a bit exaggerated? The brown-haired man asked. Rick. I'll tell you the reason why I want you to train so much. He said making the brown-haired boy pay more attention. Rick. You see, even though we are one being, at the same time we are not, so there is a small difference. Issei. And what would it be? He asked intrigued. Rick. Every time you get stronger I'll get 3 times stronger than you. That left the chestnut tree speechless. Issei. How is that possible? He asked very surprised. Rick. I don't even know. Issei. And the reason why you want me to get stronger is? He asked a little nervously. Rick. Because once you get strong enough, we won't work. He said seriously. Issei. Why? Rick. If you want, you're stupid. That bothered the chestnut tree. Rick. Because with the strength you'll gain, you'll be too strong, and if we combine it with mine, you'll be unstoppable. That left Issei speechless again. Rick. Well, let's go see the training room. Time skip. The chestnut tree was coming out of an elevator. He was very surprised to see a fairly large training camp. Issei. This is incredible, how could they build this underground? He asked very surprised. Rick. Look, there are some stairs next to the elevator. Issei. It must be in case the elevator breaks down. Rick. Well, let's go. You have to get up early tomorrow. He said seriously. Issei. Good. It was the only thing he said to return to his room and then sleep. The next morning. Our protagonist was waking up to the rays of the sun. When his eyes got a little used to the light he proceeded to look at the clock on his nightstand, seeing that he was getting late. Issei. Shit. He said lazily and then got up and dressed as quickly as he could to run out of his house. Issei. That's what happens to me for forgetting to set the alarm clock. The brown-haired boy thought, still running so as not to arrive any later than he already was. Chapter 4. When he miraculously arrived he was on time. Everyone looked at them somewhat surprised by their new appearance. The girls blushed slightly, but then remembered that he was a pervert and changed their gaze to one of contempt and disgust towards him. Narrates Issei. I was walking towards my classroom and I must say that in the week I haven't been there, nothing has changed. The atmosphere was the same. The boys looked at me with superiority, the girls looked at me with contempt, and yet I'm still glad to be back. When I got to my classroom I could see Mitsuda and Motohama beaten and lying in their places, and the girls were cleaning the dust off their uniforms. It seems that since I wasn't there to take the beating for them, they took it, and judging by their condition I can deduce that it was brutal. I could also notice that Asia, Zenobia and Arena were there, and it seems that they didn't notice my presence. But I didn't give a damn and headed to my seat. After I sat down, Mitsuda and Motohama approached me. Mitsuda. Hey, where have you been for a week? Motohama. Right, you were doing perverted things with Gremory-senpai, right? He asked angrily. Issei. Of course not. He said annoyed. Mitsuda. Then. Issei. I just felt bad, that's all. After I said that the sensei came in and the classes started. The classes were normal, the only thing that happened was that the 3 nuns looked at me, and as before, I didn't give a damn, and I paid more attention to the sensei. When the break came my 2 friends approached me. Motohama. Hey, let's spy on the girls. Mitsuda. I found a place where they might not find us. They said with perverted smiles and looked at me. Mitsuda. Let's go, Issei. He said with a smile. Issei. Guys, I've been thinking that we should leave this already. I said seriously and I saw that those who were listening were very shocked. Motohama. Hey, what have you been doing the week you were absent? He asked me seriously. Mitsuda. Yes, tell us, or maybe they did something to you, tell us what happened, whoever did something to you will deal with us. He told me in a worried tone, grabbing me by the shoulders. Issei. If only they could fight supernatural beings. I appreciate your concern, but you didn't do anything to me, I was just thinking about that. I said with a smile. I saw that they were more surprised when I said that, but the most surprised were my two friends. Mitsuda. We understand, and we're not going to do anything. He told me in a serious manner. Motohama, goodbye Issei. After saying that, the two of them left, leaving me somewhat amazed. Issei. Guys. He thought something sad. Author narrates. After those who heard the conversation left, they came out of their surprise, and two girls approached the brown-haired man. Murayama. Hey Haidu, this is a joke right? Hadis. If that's the case, we're not going to fall. Both girls were very angry about Issei's supposed lie. Issei. Hey, I know you're upset about all the times we spied on you with the boys, and I'm sorry about that, but this time it's serious, I'm not like that anymore. He said in a serious manner and went to the large courtyard of the academy, leaving everyone very shocked. After that the day went by normally, except that during classes everyone looked at him differently. The chestnut just ignored them and paid attention to the classes. When it was time for everyone to go home. Issei. Okay, and now? He asked in his mind as he walked towards the academy's door. Rick. Let's train in that training room. He said seriously. Issei. Well, but. Rick. But. Issei. I lost my friends today and I don't have much desire to train now. He thought something sad. Rick. I don't know why it affects you, with that action they showed that they were not your friends. Issei. Or maybe, his perversion was worth more than our friendship. He thought still sadly. Rick. Calm down, if you're going to get strong you don't need distractions like friends. Issei. I guess you're right. He thought a little more animatedly. Rick. Okay, now go train. He said seriously, receiving a nod from the brown-haired man. When they arrived home they saw Rias sitting on the sofa. Rias. Issei, I have to talk to you. Issei. What? He said in a cold manner, something that surprised Aridid, but she put it aside. Rias. I'll be clear, I need your pieces. He said it would be. That left the brown-haired boy surprised. Issei. I won't let myself get hurt again. He said in a defensive pose, leaving the Aridid confused, but she didn't pay attention to that. Rias. It wasn't a question. After saying that he closed his fist and the brown-haired man felt an indescribable pain that made him fall to his knees. Rias. How dare you disobey your mistress? Issei. It's as stupid how could I obey you if you are expelling me from your entourage? It's as simply stupid. He said, holding back the pain that was too much. Rias. Shut up already. He shouted, quickly lowering his hand. This caused pieces of the chestnut's body to abruptly come out, leaving 8 holes in his torso. Issei. IW was wrong, cough cough cough, HW was alright. He said weakly. Rissa. What do you mean? Well, it doesn't matter. He said, picking up the blood-filled pieces from the ground and leaving the brown-haired boy on the verge of death. Issei. I am going to DIR. He said closing his eyes, but. Rick. No, I'm stopping it. And that he uses his power to heal the wounds of the chestnut tree that little by little opened his eyes again. Rick. Let's leave training for tomorrow, get up. At that the brown-haired boy, with his wounds a little healed, gets up with difficulty to head to his room, staggering. Rick. You see. They're just bastards. He said with hatred in his voice. Issei. I see it and it makes me so angry, I can't believe how stupid I was to join them. He thought the same as his counterpart. Rick. But look on the bright side. Issei. And what would be positive about this? He thought angrily about the comment. Rick. You are free from those disgusting beings, you are no longer bound to them, you can do what we want. He said, encouraging the brown-haired boy a little. Issei. You're right, I'll be able to do whatever I want without anyone telling me or demanding anything from me. He said with a smile as he reached his room and lay down on his bed to fall asleep while Rick healed his wounds. Chapter 5. The next day. The sun was rising in the city of Kuo, but we sat in a particular house, in which there was a chestnut tree waking up from the annoying rays of the sun. Issei. How annoying. he said, rubbing his eyes, and after a few seconds he stopped doing it. Then he gets out of bed and sees that his blankets are stained with blood. Issei. So it wasn't a dream, I'm finally free. He said with a smile. Rick. You're free to do whatever you want and no one will get in your way. Issei. You're right. He said a little excitedly. Rick. What time is it? Issei. Well, it's 6 a.m. and classes start at 8 o'clock. Rick. Perfect, enough time to train. Issei. Are you seriously still on the training thing? Rick. What did you expect, a hug? Go train. Issei. Well, stop shouting. After saying that, he went to take a bath and eat something. When he went downstairs he saw everyone having breakfast, so he stealthily went to the kitchen without anyone noticing to take an apple and leave quietly. Fortunately for him, no one noticed, except for a certain white-haired loli who smelled his scent but didn't give it any importance. While the chestnut tree was going down to the top floor in the elevator eating his apple. When the elevator door opened, he stepped out and threw his apple's trash on the floor. Issei. Okay, and now what do I do? Rick. Start by doing 200 push-ups, 200 sit-ups, 200 squats, and finally I want you to do 500 laps around the entire field. Issei. Do you want to kill me? I remind you now that I'm an ordinary human. He said, something nervous. Rick. I know, and that's why I'm giving you this workout, now go train if you don't want me to give you more exercises. Issei. Well. And so the brown-haired boy's training began, and now that he is a human, for him the workouts were hellish, he could barely do 100 of each one, and every time he reached 100 push-ups his arms made strange noises, something like a crunch, but he never gave up. Time skip 1 month. The chestnut tree lies on the floor of the training ground panting from exhaustion. Issei. I see, can't take it anymore. He said, super exhausted. Rick. Well, you've improved since we started, that's why I increased the amount of exercises you had to do. He said calmly. Issei. A week ago you tripled the amount of exercises just because I got used to the ones I was doing quickly. He said, more recovered. Rick. You got used to it very quickly. Issei. It's not that bad. Rick. It's not that big of a deal. By the second or third week, you were doing 100 of each. You just say it's not that big of a deal, right? Issei. Speaking of which, it is very rare for that to happen, a normal human would take a very long time to even be able to do them with some ease. Rick. Maybe some of the strength you had as a demon stayed with you, and that must have helped in your training. Issei. Yes, that must be it, but well, I have to go to sleep, tomorrow I have to go to the academy. He said, entering the elevator to go to his room. The next day. The chestnut tree was walking through the large courtyard of the Kuo Academy. He was somewhat uncomfortable since they knew he was no longer a pervert, the other students saw him differently. Some men still looked down on him and others looked at him like any other boy. On the part of the girls, some still looked at him with contempt and others only with distrust. Issei. This is annoying and uncomfortable. He thought with his gaze down. But a couple of girls stopped him. Murayama. Hey Haidu. He said, making me turn to look at them. Hadis. Don't even think about going near the locker room. He said, staring at him. Issei. That's what they've been telling me since I changed and I haven't done anything to make them not believe me. He said with boredom. Murayama. We just make sure you don't do anything suspicious. Issei. Well, do what you want. He said, going to the grass to lie down for a while. This one was calm with his eyes closed. Until. Rick. Hey. He said, interrupting the piece of the chestnut tree. Issei. What do you want? Rick. So what do you think if we go kill some rogue demons tonight? Issei. Sounds tempting bucket, let's do it. Rick. Fine, but it will be at dawn so there are no interruptions, and you know who I mean. Issei. You're right, we don't want to attract the attention of vermin. He thought, clenching his fists. At that moment the bell rings indicating that the recess is over. Issei. We'll talk later. He thought, getting up and heading to his living room. Time skip. The brown-haired boy was walking home when he passed through an alley and someone pulled him and pointed a gun at him. Thief. If you want to live, you better cooperate, give me everything you have. He said, bringing the gun closer to his head. Issei. Now what do I do? He has a gun to my head and if I make a move he'll shoot and I'll have to go visit Mama Coco. He thought, alarmed. Rick. Lend me your body. Issei. What? Are you sure? He thought, not very confidently. Rick. Sure, your body is already strong enough to endure, you just have to close your eyes. Said the chestnut counterpart. Issei. Good. He thought, closing his eyes. But when he opened them he was no longer in the alley, but in a place full of darkness with only a screen that showed him the thief still pointing the gun at him. Issei. Huh. What happened? He asked confused. Rick. Well, we made a temporary exchange. Rick thought about Issei's body. Issei. And what will you do? Rick. You'll see. He thought, starting to laugh. Thief. What do you see that seems funny to you? Issei R. Well, I'm not laughing at something I'm seeing, but at what's going to happen to you he said with a macabre smile. Thief. Ha, you can't do anything to me, don't you realize the position you're in? Issei R. Yes, I realize, but that's going to change. Thief. And how will you do it? I ask in a mocking tone. He then receives a blow to the face that sends him crashing into the wall. Issei R. This will be fun for me. He started laughing like a psychopath, scaring the thief a lot. Chapter 6. In an alley you can see a thief all beaten up on the ground and a Rick with Issei's body in front of him. Issei R. I told you the roles would be reversed. He said with a psychopathic smile. Thief. I understand please let me go. He said in supplications. Issei R. You know. I don't believe it. He said approaching the thief who was terrified. But as he approached he saw a strange can. When he took it and read what it said, a crazy smile formed on his face. Issei R. I came up with a nice game. He said still with his smile. Thief. What will you do to me? Grounded. Issei R. I'm going to have fun approaching and taking a rusty knife that was on the ground. Then he stabs the thief in all his limbs, causing him to let out a heart-rending scream. But Rick with Issei's body covers his mouth. Issei R. SSSHHHHH you better save your energy because the game is about to begin. With the biggest smile opening the can. Issei R. Taking advantage of the fact that you can't move your limbs, I'll throw this at you. Do you know what it is? Residing in denial. Issei R. Is ammonia acid. He said pouring a little of the liquid on the wound on his leg. Thief. I scream heartbreakingly. Issei R. It's fantastic, no, according to what I investigated, if I pour this on the nerve it is the greatest pain that a person can withstand without suffering a cardiac arrest, and that was only a small drop, we can do it with our arms He laughed like a psychopathic one. Time skip. Rick is seen with Issei's body sitting on the floor leaning against a wall and seeing the body of the already dead with his arms and legs somewhat melted. Issei R. Okay, let's change. He said to close his eyes. And when he opened them he was no longer the same. Issei. What you did was crazy. Rick. But you did it. Issei. What are you talking about? If we switch bodies? Rick. Remember, I am you, why do you think you have that sensation of satisfaction? Issei. Now that you mention it, I'm more relaxed than before, I'm satisfied damn, I really did it. He said in amazement, seeing his hands. Rick. Yes, but well, go home, you still have to train. From then on everything went normally for the chestnut tree. Training, being ignored, although he also did the latter with others. This went on until dawn. 3:30 a.m. The ex-pervert was leaving his room to go to his brother's to see if there was any girl awake. When he saw that everyone was fast asleep, he left his house to start searching the dark and empty streets of Kuo for some renegade demon or someone bad to kill. But when he was about to give up, he heard a crash coming from a forest outside the city. The chestnut tree decided to go see what was happening. When he arrived he saw a fallen angel killing innocent animals while laughing. Hahaha, I never get tired of this. Nailing a spear of light to a deer that was walking by the place. This made Issei clench his fists. Until he couldn't stand it anymore and came out of hiding. Issei. Okay. He said, drawing the attention of the dark-winged angel. Wow, a human, I never thought I'd see one around here, well, with you I'm going to have a little more fun than with these animals. Creating a spear of light and launching himself against the chestnut who could barely dodge the attack. Issei. Shit, I don't know what would have happened to me if I didn't dodge it. Come on, don't dodge it, I just want to play a little. Throwing the spear of light that the brown-haired boy narrowly dodged. Grrr, I'm tired, I'm going to hit you myself. Appearing in front of the chestnut tree and hitting him in the face, sending him crashing into a tree, splitting it. While the fallen one laughed like crazy, Issei stood up with difficulty and with his forehead bleeding, began to approach the fallen angel. Hahaha, you are really resistant, any human would have died. Issei. Damn, with one blow he left me like this, shit what do I do? Rick. I can give you some of my strength and speed, although I don't know if it's enough. Issei. Is that possible? Rick. Yes, your body can handle it, but hurry up. Issei. Fine, thanks. At that the chestnut tree feels that his strength returns and even that he has more than he had. Issei. I'm better now. He said with a smile, but his forehead was still bleeding. Ack. You have the strength to continue, huh? Go ahead, try to hurt me. He said arrogantly. At that point the chestnut tree jumps at the crow and hits him in the stomach, knocking the wind out of him. But it doesn't end there, as with the same fist that hit him in the stomach, he hits him in the chin, raising it a few centimeters. He spins around and kicks him in the side, pushing him away from him a few meters. Ack. Wow, you have some strength after all, but that won't defeat me. Getting up and wiping the blood from his mouth. Ack. Hey, you look familiar. I remember now, you're the Sekiryuutei, right? Hahaha, what happened to you? Don't you have the Red Emperor Dragon anymore? Well, that would explain why you're so weak now. Hahaha, this makes it more fun, now I have more reasons to tear you apart. Throwing himself against the brown-haired man and hitting him in the stomach, making him spit blood and fall to his knees. Ack. Why don't you use your dragon power? Issei. I don't have that stupid dragon anymore. Ack. And how did you plan to confront me if you knew you had no chance? Issei. Not everything is won with strength and powers. Ack. Hahaha, what a good joke, I'm already dead. Making a spear of light and trying to stick it into the chestnut's chest. But in an agile movement he takes away the spear of light and sticks it in the throat of the fallen angel who fell dead, filling the floor with blood. Issei. That felt amazing, like I've never tried it before. He shouted excitedly and tiredly. Rick. I'm wondering the same thing. Well, now we have to go home, tomorrow is Saturday and you have to train. The chestnut counterpart said calmly. Issei. Okay, we should do this more often. He said coming out of the forest. Rick. Good idea, from now on you'll go out every morning to kill rogue demons or some fallen angel. Issei. But I'll need a weapon, because I can't kill everything with blows. Rick. Do you still have the sword the dove gave you? Issei. Yes, some time ago the booster gear was defused, why? Rick. You'll get away with that, and that way you'll also learn how to use the sword. Issei. Well, whatever you say, now what I want is to get some sleep. He said sleepily and very tired. Chapter 7. A week later. The chestnut tree could be seen in the basement of an abandoned and very deteriorated factory. But what stood out most was that everything was tinged with red. Balls, some old machinery. And you might wonder why. Well, Issei made a massacre with some fallen angels who were planning to kill an innocent family who owed them money. That was reason enough for the chestnut to make a bloodbath with what were now intestines, deformed masses of flesh, black feathers and blood stains on the floor and on the wall. A week ago the chestnut tree started going in search of renegade demons or fallen angels who want to get away with it. But also made him have better use of his Ascalon sword. But back to the topic. Right now, Issei is climbing some stairs to leave through the factory's main exit. The chestnut was covered in blood and climbing the stairs with great difficulty since the fallen angels also managed to injure him. Issei. Oh my god, that's incredible. Rick. Right. You've improved since you first started this. Issei. Yes, if I didn't lend you my body at the right moment I would have died. You killed them in an incredible way. He said in a weak voice. Rick. And you're not far behind, a few days later you started killing in a grotesque and incredible way, although they also managed to hurt you, but we'll correct that. Issei. I like seeing the blood drip from their bodies and also seeing them beg me for mercy. That's fun. He said he had already recovered, but he said the last part with grace. Rick. And what do you plan to do in the next few days? Issei. Well, I'll simply keep cutting them, killing them, killing them until I can't laugh anymore haha. He said between giggles and laughing at the end. Rick. You'll see, this will be great. The next day. The brown-haired boy is seen waking up in his bed. He was sore from the previous night's exertion. His wounds were healed by Rick, but his body still hurt a lot. Without anything to say he got up, but as he did so he felt an unbearable migraine that forced him to grab his head and lie back down in his bed. Issei. Shit, this hurts a lot. He said with his eyes closed. Rick. You really tried hard last night. The chestnut-haired boy remembered what happened last night. The way he laughed psychopathically and killed those fallen angels. He couldn't help but smile at the memory of that. Issei. I've never felt more alive hehehe. Rick. You should change your clothes and take a bath, you smell like death hahaha. When he got home last night he was so tired that he fell asleep in his bed, forgetting that his clothes were covered in blood. Issei. Okay, Solo, what time is it? He looked at the clock on his bedside table and saw that it was 5:07 a.m. Issei. Okay. I'm going. And with effort he got out of bed, still with a headache, but not as much as a while ago. Staggering, he went to the bathroom without first undressing and leaving his clothes in a dirty clothes basket he had in his room. 15 minutes later. The brown-haired boy left the bathroom still in a lot of pain in his body. Issei. My legs, they hurt a lot. He said with effort. Rick. There were a lot of fallen angels last night. Issei. Yes B but it was fun. Rick. I liked when they were decapitated, they looked like water fountains. Issei. Hahaha yes. I liked it when I ripped off their wings, their feathers fell like rain hahaha. Rick. Well, get ready to go to the academy. Issei. Aren't we going to train? Rick. Not today, you don't have to overexert yourself. Issei, okay. After that little chat the brown-haired boy went to put on his uniform. After an hour Issei came out of his room staggering. Being in a lot of pain, it was very difficult for him to put on his uniform. He didn't want to go, but he was in for the year's exams. And if he wanted to get stronger, he should at least finish high school. So he had no choice but to go down to the kitchen to get something to eat. But he stopped when he saw that everyone was already up and ready to start their day and left his suitcase, backpack or whatever they call it, on the floor. And no matter how much he thought about how to get to the kitchen without them noticing his presence, nothing came to his mind and the fact that he was in pain didn't help him at all. So it didn't matter to him 3 acres of cock and he went on his way to the kitchen. And of course everyone noticed, they saw him staggering to the kitchen and they saw him struggle not to fall. For his part, the brown-haired boy was about to reach the kitchen with a smile of victory. But he heard something that made him almost give in and fall. Issei. Son, aren't you staying for breakfast? At that question the brown-haired boy turned around and saw everyone looking at him with smiles. Including Rias and Yasaka. The brown-haired boy clenched his fists, but after a few seconds he calmed down. Issei. And no need mom, I'll eat something at the academy, but for now I'll settle for a bread. He said entering the kitchen grabbing a loaf of bread and leaving to grab his suitcase and leave. But once again he was interrupted by his father. Issei. It seems like you've been exercising a lot lately, right? He asked seeing how sore the brown-haired boy looked. Issei. Yes, exercised, he clear yes I did that yes. He said grabbing his things and heading to the door staggering. Yasaka. Take care, brother. With a smile. The brown-haired boy just ignored him and left as quickly as possible so as not to see them. Arena. Don't you think Issei is acting very strange? Issei. Don't worry, it should be fine. The others listened and didn't give the matter much thought. Except for one and that was Kaneko who saw the brown-haired boy's behavior very suspiciously and stared at the door where Issei came out. Issei-san. He was heading to the academy as fast as he could since his legs still hurt a lot. But he was very angry at the way others softened him. But what made him most furious was the smile Rias and his brother gave him. Issei. Grrrr those damn things. Rick. Calm down, right now when you're weak, one wrong move will make you fall and it will hurt a lot. Issei. It's just that, I want to kill them. And even more so that Redeed. Rick. And you think I don't? Calm down and focus on getting to the academy on time. Issei, bien. He said annoyed. Chapter 8. Upon arriving at the academy, the brown-haired boy saw that everything was normal. Nobody looked at him with bad eyes, except for 2 girls who, although they already looked at him with hatred, still distrusted him. I didn't take it very seriously and went to my living room. Since it was a bit early he started drawing in one of his notebooks. He was drawing until his classmates and sensei arrived, except for the church trio. The classes went by normally, with nothing to report. Everything was quiet now that the Gremory entourage were gone. But there were still the Citri. These last few days they were watching him and of course the chestnut tree noticed. At night he managed to lose them to kill demons or fallen angels without having to worry about anything else. But for Issei it is still a nuisance that he always has to be watched by those disgusting beings as he calls them now. But other than that, it was fine. At this moment he was lying at the foot of a tree in the large courtyard of the academy. His muscles still hurt a lot but he still tried to move as little as possible. I was calm until I heard screams of pain. When he saw what it was, he could see that now the perverted duo were being beaten by the girls from the kendo club. He laughed a little, but a pain came to his torso that he had to endure until the pain passed. Rick. You can't even laugh anymore hahaha. Issei. Yeah, go on, laugh, I bet you'd be the same. Rick. Sure, whatever you say. By the way, do you want to go for the kill today? Issei. Of course, that's why I just hope the day ends, I want to continue with this. Rick. Are you sure? Your body still hurts a lot. Issei. I know, but you can do something, right? Rick. Well, I can block the pain for a few minutes, but after that you won't be able to move for about 2 days. Issei. Oh damn. Then I'll have to wait for the pain to go away a bit or at least until I can walk normally. Rick. And what would you do in the meantime? Issei. I'll think of something, but I don't want to see you know who. Rick. Now that you're weak, you'll have to try harder to avoid them. Issei. And that's why I also want this pain to go away quickly. At that moment the bell rings indicating that the recess is over. Issei. Talk later. He said to Rick in his mind as he stood up with great difficulty. Once standing, the brown-haired man began to walk unsteadily, pretending he was drunk. As she stumbled through the hallways she ran into Saji whom she ignored, but… Saji. Haidu, is something wrong with you? He said seeing how the chestnut was. Issei. And nothing's happening. He said following his course, but he felt a pang in his whole body preventing him from continuing and falling. Seeing this, Rubio went to help him. Saji. Hey, what's wrong? Well, that doesn't matter, I'll take you to the infirmary. Grabbing him by the arm. Issei. No. I see Kano alone. Trying to get up but couldn't and fell again. The blonde was surprised by that answer but didn't give it much importance. Saji. Issei, you look terrible, I'll take you to the infirmary whether you like it or not. Grabbing it once more, but… Issei. Don't touch me. I'll go on my own. I. He could not continue as he fell unconscious. The pawn Citri was surprised by such a response from the chestnut tree. But she still took Issei to the infirmary and from there she went to report this to the student council president. 2 hours later. The chestnut tree was on one of the stretchers in the infirmary. Until he slowly began to open his eyes. Issei. What happened? Rick. You fell unconscious from the pain you felt. Issei. Oh okay. Rick. How do you feel? Issei. Well I see can't move. Rick. You'll have to wait a few minutes until you can stand up. Issei. Okay. He stayed like that for another hour until he was able to stand up with great difficulty and staggered away. When he left the building he saw that there was no one there so he went home. It took a long time because of the pain I felt, but it arrived. When he opened the door he didn't see anyone so he went up to his room, but when he passed by his brothers he heard something that made him very happy. Isaac, yes Mr. Rizavan, at this moment no one is suspicious. He said while communicating through a magic circle. That happened while the younger chestnut listened with a smile. Rick. Wow, why am I not surprised? Issei. Nothing less could be expected from that imbecile. Rick. Hahaha and the worst of all is that the girls don't realize it and they spend their time glued to him. Issei. I know, and that brings a smile to my face. Rick. Will you tell them? Issei. No, I won't, let them find out on their own. After that he went to his room to lie down on his bed and fall asleep. The next day. The brown-haired boy was slowly opening his eyes due to the sun's rays. Issei. Shit, you can't sleep peacefully because of the sun. He said, quickly covering himself with his blankets. But he realized the quick movement he made and opened his eyes suddenly. And he got up from his bed quickly. Issei. But what? Rick. Are you feeling better? Issei. Yes, in fact, I feel better than ever, stronger than before. Looking at your hands and making them fists. Rick. It's weird, but hey, you have to take advantage, right? Issei. Yes. And now what do we do? Rick. Well, since it's the weekend, let's test that strength you say you have. Issei. Sure, but first I'm going to take a bath. He said entering the bathroom. But he didn't realize that a white-haired Nekomata was listening to him wondering why the brown-haired boy was talking to himself. But he decided to leave and inform the Redeed. 15 minutes later. Issei. Ah how relaxing. Coming out of the bathroom already dressed in sportswear. Rick. And now where do we go? Issei. I don't know, we could go to the forest, right? Rick. Well, as long as we don't see those freaks it's fine. Issei. Yes, well, let's go quickly, I don't want to see them either. He said leaving his room and going down to the living room to see that there was no one there. Issei. Okay, let's go. Leaving his house and heading into the forest. In Isaac's room. The chestnut's ex-girls were talking about something while Isaac wasn't even there. Rias. You say Issei was talking to himself. Kaneko. Yes, he's been behaving strangely for a few days now. Arena. It must be nothing, it must be fine. Akeno. That's right, I don't think we should worry. Rias. I don't know, last night Sona called me telling me that Saji tried to help him because he was very bad, but Issei behaved aggressively. Akeno. He must be going through a bad time, that's all. Zenobia. Let's stop talking about that and go have breakfast, I'm already hungry. Rias. Okay, let's go eat something. Akeno. This is how I'll feed Isaac-kun. Asia. It's not fair Akeno-san, I also want to be with Isaac-kun. So they all spent their time fighting over who would feed Isaac. But Issei. This one was already in a forest not far from the city. Issei. Well, we arrived walking and I didn't get tired at all. Rick. Well, at least we know you don't get tired of anything anymore. Issei. What do you mean? Rick. Nothing. Issei. Well, I'll let you pass because I don't give a shit. He said, going to a tree and touching it. Issei. I wonder if. He raises his fist and hits it in the middle of the trunk, passing through it as if it were nothing. Issei. What a fart, what a fart. Taking the arm out of the trunk. Rick. Your strength increased a lot, you jumped with all your strength. Issei. Yes. At that, he jumped with all his strength and was surprised because he reached a height where he could see the city. But it didn't last long as gravity did its thing and he landed on his feet. Issei. This excites me more and more. He said with a smile. Rick. Let's go back to the city running with everything, let's see how much your speed increased. Issei. Understood. The chestnut tree got into a running pose and ran at high speed until it reached the city in just 2 minutes. But he couldn't stop in time and crashed into a wall of an abandoned building, passing through it. Issei. I couldn't control it well. Rick. And what did you expect? You just got this strength. Issei. Okay, let's just go somewhere else. Heading up and leaving the building. Chapter 9. At this moment the brown-haired boy was very excited, not to say that he was pulling his hair out. But why? Well, it was already night, barely 8 p.m., and the brown-haired boy wanted to go kill fallen angels or some renegade demon. The boy was getting impatient. In the short time he has been doing this he liked it so much that it became a drug for him. A drug he wasn't willing to give up. While I waited I paced back and forth. I was desperate. He looked at his watch, and every second that passed seemed like an eternity. Until a doubt came to him. Issei. Hey Rick. Rick. What's wrong? Issei. If I remember correctly, you told me that every time I got stronger, you got 3 times stronger, right? He asked curiously. Rick. That's right, but that takes time. At least as much time as you spent training until you had that strength. Issei. I find it strange that happened, but as you said we have to take advantage of it. Rick. That's right, but anyway, let's move on to a topic that worries me. Issei. And what is it? Intrigued. Rick. That Nekomata, she hasn't been looking lately, and although she doesn't want to admit it, she is cunning. If we don't do something she might discover us, killing her doesn't sound bad. Issei. I know, but that will be another time. Rick. Why? Issei. Because of the issue that my brother works for Rizavum, I want to see the hopelessness on their faces, and I'm going to enjoy it like you can't imagine. Rick. Oh, by the way, when I get 3 times as strong as you, we'll merge, depending on how strong you are now. Issei. Really? I wouldn't want you to leave, after all, you're the only one I can talk to. Rick. Don't worry, calm down just one, you'll feel like I didn't leave. Issei. Well, if you say so. With a little smile. And so they talked about trivial things until midnight came. The chestnut changed and left without anyone seeing him. 2 hours later. Issei was walking through the church that was destroyed when he went to rescue Asia. The place was abandoned so he could make as much noise as he wanted. While exploring the place he could hear a woman's screams coming from the basement. When he got down he actually saw the woman screaming, she was about to be raped by a group of 5 fallen angels. The woman screamed for help. She is the woman. Until she was hit in the face by one of them causing her to fall to the ground. And C1. Shut up. Your shouting stresses me out, so you're going to de-stress me. Tearing off her clothes and getting on top of her. And C1, you like it? He aimed to do something that would leave the woman traumatized forever. But. Issei. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm not going to let you continue with this despicable act. Standing in front of the fallen angels and giving a light of hope to the woman. And C3. Wow, here's another human who wants to play the hero. And C2. Now that I see it better. It looks like the Sekiryuutei, you are the Sekiryuutei, aren't you? No response received. And C5. You are the Sekiryuutei. And C4. It's perfect, the woman will see us kill you while we grape her. The woman was terrified at the idea and once again began to be afraid. Issei. What makes you think I'll let you do something to him? And C1. Oh, right, you are the Red Emperor Dragon, you will surely use it to defeat us and take us to Azazel, right? Issei. I actually plan to kill them and laugh over their corpses, and for your information, I'm no longer the Sekiryuutei. At that the fallen angels burst out laughing. And C5. Ha 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 ha, this is perfect, now we can kill you without you being able to do anything. Making a spear of light. Issei. Ooh, if I were you I wouldn't do that. But peace of mind. And C5. And what will you do? You no longer have the power to do anything against us. Issei. I'll tell you one more time, you better stop. Without any reaction. The fallen angel would not pay attention and would throw the spear. The brown-haired boy, seeing this, began to see in slow motion how the spear of light was approaching. That amazed him, but he wasted no time and grabbed the light spear with one hand. The dark-winged angels were amazed and the woman was very surprised. Issei. I warned you. In a quick movement he returned the spear, throwing it at himself. The fallen angel could not react and the spear pierced his head, dying instantly, and the spear remained stuck in the wall. The fallen angels were even more surprised and the woman was in shock, especially because she was splashed with the fallen angel's blood. And C3. W how? And it doesn't matter, we'll all kill you. So all the fallen angels made spears of light and went to attack the chestnut tree. But Issei dodged all the attacks with ease and still without any expression on his face. The woman went to hide where there was some rubble and watched the fight unfold. For their part, the group of fallen angels were getting desperate since the chestnut dodged each and every one of their attacks with all the tranquility in the world. And C3, stop moving damn it. Issei. I guess if you tell me that you want me to attack, okay, let's start. At that the brown-haired man hits the fallen angel in the chest, piercing him, grabbing his heart and crushing it. The others were about to vomit from seeing the scene, especially the woman. And C1, evil. He went to attack him but was kicked in the right side, sending him crashing into the wall, leaving him unconscious. The last two were hesitant to attack. Issei. What's going on? You don't want to attack anymore? Oh, and you said you were going to kill me, look without having that dragon I killed two of you ha 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 ha. And C4. Damn, we'll make you eat your words. Once again they went to attack him. But this time the chestnut tree didn't give them a chance to get close. He grabbed a spear of light that was stuck in and went to attack, dodging his attacks and stabbing one of them in the throat, killing him instantly. And C4, you're a bastard. Going to attack. Issei. I'll use my fists with you. Breaking the spear and attacking the fallen angel, punching him in the stomach, causing him to vomit a large amount of blood. At that moment he turns around and kicks him in the face, sending him crashing into the wall. Issei. What could I do with you? I know. Following that, he steps on his chest and begins to pull the fallen man's arm, starting to tear it off while he screamed in pain. And C4. Enough. Issei. Come on, keep going, scream, satisfy me with your screams of pain Tearing off his arm, blood splattering the place. While the woman was horrified by what she saw. Thus the brown-haired man dismembered the fallen angel while laughing like a psychologist before the gaze of the woman who remained in a trance. 30 minutes later. Everything was silent, the woman was still in a trance. While Issei was motionless with his face and suit covered in blood. For about 5 minutes he had finished his killing spree and had not moved. Issei. Wow, I never thought this would be so pleasant, I can't get enough of this. Rick. Yeah, it was great, but there's another problem. Issei. Which one? Rick. The woman they were about to grape is still here. Issei. Shit, I forgot I was here. At that moment he turns around and sees the woman who, upon seeing him, went to hide. The chestnut tree went there and saw the woman who was trembling with fear at the sight of him. Woman. Don't knock me, please. Starting to cry. Issei. I won't do anything to you, what's your name? Woman. Stella. The one already identified as Stella fearfully watched the brown-haired girl, who, the closer she got, lost hope of living. Issei. Okay, Stella, get up, I won't do anything to you, I know what you saw was horrible for you, but those disgusting beings deserve to be eradicated that way. Stella. Won't you kill me? She asked fearfully. Issei. No, just like you I am human, and I do not kill those of my kind. The chestnut rises. Issei. Well, if you want I'll take you home, there might be more of that stuff. Smiling. Stella. It's okay. A little distrustful. So they both left the church. But Issei forgot that he left a fallen angel alive who, upon waking up and seeing what the brown-haired boy did, went to inform Azazel. Chapter 10. A few days passed, and the fallen angel who survived informed his leader what happened. Of course he tried to tell her that he attacked them out of nowhere. For the bird, he connected it to a lie detector that he himself created, I don't know since when, and when they realized that he was lying, they forced him to tell the truth. And when he told them what they were going to do, well, it didn't have a happy ending. The other factions were also informed and did not believe much in it. But they still went to watch the chestnut tree, which realized it instantly as it was always alert. To say I was furious was an understatement. He even almost kills those who were watching him, angels, fallen angels, demons, even Yakase. He made an effort beyond his limits not to go and kill them in 1,000 different ways. But he did it so that they wouldn't discover him. But that also helped him because being at home, he could also listen to the calls that Rizev made to his brother. And what surprised him most was that he learned that the old man was dying from an attack the chestnut tree had given him, which had caused irreparable damage to his vital organs. He only has about 7 months left to live. He planned all this so that the factions would weaken as well as take the current Sekiryuutei so that he could free the Trihexa again. What he found out made him go to the patio and have a good laugh for 2 reasons. The first is that he was able to find out more, and the second is that the idiot spoke out loud, knowing that the brown-haired man's room and he himself were there, and he heard everything he said. Present. The chestnut tree was bored lying in his bed until. Rick. Here's. Issei. Huh. What's up? Rick. I was exploring your memories and I saw something interesting that you forgot. Issei. Yeah. Well, you're wasting your time. It's my mind, so I don't think I've forgotten anything. Rick. Are you sure? Issei. Yep, very sure. With a smile. Rick. Well, then I don't think you've forgotten that Akeno has a spell book in her room. Issei. And I'm here wasting my time. Getting up from his bed and going to Akeno's room. Rick. Hey, won't they discover you? Issei. No, the girls hardly even go near their rooms anymore since they sleep with the creep. Unless they have to change. Besides, they're not at home. He thought, opening the door to the room and seeing something that made him and Rick sweat on his neck. Issei. I knew he was a sadomasochist, but this is another level. He thought seeing how his entire room was full of hex toys, whips, some outfits similar to Rainer's and several other things. Issei. And I'm the sick one. Going deeper into the room, he found some more things like a ball with one of those bands that cover your mouth so you can't scream, some chains, ropes, a stretcher. Issei. When the hell did he bring these things? Rick. Even though she doesn't want to admit it, she's good with magic, how do you think she brought all this on? Issei. Now I understand why he didn't let anyone into his room, but anyway, what we came for. He said approaching a shelf full of books of different types. He searched for a few minutes and found a book that had a cover of a Muscle Boy magazine. Issei. No lo see Rick, it looks fake. Rick. Hey, don't get too smart with me, kid, and take off the cover. He said something annoying. Issei. Okay, calm down, I was just joking. Taking off the cover and seeing that it looked like a normal book. Issei. Okay, let's see. Opening the book and reviewing the contents. And indeed it was a book that taught how to use magic, spells, etc. Issei. Okay, now I'm leaving here, this place gives me the creeps. But before leaving he covered another book with the cover and left there. 2 hours later. The chestnut was reading the book while eating some chips. Issei. Okay, according to this, I have to have a high magic reserve to be able to use transportation circles. Rick. And do you even know if you have reservations? Issei. To what Rias explained to me, the magical reserves depend on how strong you are and. Well, I'm very fed up. He said, standing in front of a full-length mirror and taking off his shirt and making a pose. Something like that. Rick. You're going to start now, let's study that book more thoroughly and see if we can come up with a spell. Receiving a yes for an answer and began to study and practice what was in the book. They were like that for a few hours. But he came to a page that interested him. Issei. Elemental magic, according to this, if my magic reserves are very high I can learn to use 4 elements, both primary and secondary. Rick. And which ones interest you? Issei. Well, the ones that catch my attention the most are lightning, fire, air. Those would be just 3. Rick. Well, let's keep seeing what else there is. The brown-haired boy nodded and continued to see what else the book offered him. He saw all kinds of spells. By creation, one of absorption and magic attacks. He became more and more excited to learn everything he read. Issei. Damn, instead of being a pervert I should have learned these things. Excited. Rick. Well, I won't argue with you about that, but anyway, it's late and you said you would train early tomorrow. The chestnut tree looked at his watch and saw that it was already 1 a.m. Issei. Well, I better go to sleep. Getting up to go to the bathroom. A few minutes later he came out wearing a pair of pants and nothing on top. He hid the book in case certain people came in. And he went to sleep to get up early and train to get stronger. Chapter 11. It's been 4 months since Issei read the book. At that time the chestnut was practicing the spells that were in the book. He was able to learn to use magic transportation circles, as well as the elements of air, fire, and lightning. The first was the air. Air. This element was difficult and it was the easiest of the 3 to mold. The first thing he did was create defenses, like an air barrier, pretending that he was creating an invisible barrier. That was the only defense he could create, since it did not occur to him what else he could do for his defense. In the attacks it was a little easier for him. The first attack he created was compressed air impact blows. Consists of absorbing the wind around you and releasing it with a blow to increase the force of the impact on both your arms and legs. Air grenade. Like his first attack, this technique consists of absorbing the wind in a small sphere in the palm of his hand, which when thrown and exploded, creates small grenades that cause stronger explosions. Blizzard sword. This works with the sword. It absorbs a massive amount of wind. Enough so that with one swing of the sword, it produces a blizzard of cutting wind within a 25-meter perimeter, literally shattering anyone within a 15-meter perimeter. Those outside that perimeter only receive deep cuts. Ray. The lightning element was harder to control. But this he only did attacks and speed techniques. The most common would be to surround himself with lightning to increase his speed and physical strength. Only when he does this his hair stands on end. Electric impact. It's a combination with a lightning bolt and its impact technique, except that this one requires 2 hits, one to paralyze the recipient and another to increase the damage until it kills them. Only to paralyze them, it has to hit them in a vital part of the body. Lightning strikes. This is simpler. Just surround your arms or legs with lightning and throw punches or kicks at lightning speed. He can also combine it with his impact technique to unleash a barrage of blows, killing his opponent and leaving them like ground meat. However, if he overuses it, his arms will break. Fire. This element was difficult for him to control. And he only has it halfway. In this element he could only create one special attack. Crimson Hell. Consists of hitting the ground with all his strength and making the entire floor turn crimson red, causing whoever steps on the area to end up disintegrated from the feet up. In short, everything that touches the floor within a radius of 20 meters ends up dead, except for him. Only that leaves him almost without energy. Bucking techniques with shitty names that my head makes up. Present. You can see a chestnut tree in the middle of what was once a mountain and what is now pure rubble. This one was really tired. He could barely stand. But this one smiled. Since all that time he has been lightning strikes with all his strength to destroy that mountain until he ended up combining it with his impact technique, thus destroying it, but he was about to break his arms. Rick. Hey, why are you so happy? He asked curiously. Issei. Well, it's just that I still remember when I used the blizzard sword against those renegade demons. Haha. I can't get it out of my mind. Rick. Yeah, you almost died laughing that time. It didn't matter that you were about to fall unconscious. Issei. And what did you want? Watching them shatter into pieces was very entertaining and it was the first time he'd used that technique. Already recovered. Rick. But that happened a month ago, I don't understand why you still can't get it out of your head. Issei. Well, let's go, the vermin will surely come. Starting to run at high speed, disappearing from the place in a few seconds. After that a magic circle appeared, from it came out the Gremory clan including Arena. Akeno. Disappeared. Rias. Who would have the strength to destroy that mountain? Seeing what the chestnut tree has done. Arena. I hope it's not an enemy. We've had enough with Trihexa without having to deal with someone else. A little nervous. Isaac. Don't worry, Arena-chan, he's certainly not someone so strong just to destroy this mountain, we would easily defeat him. With an arrogant tone. Rias. Issei-kun is right, it wouldn't be such a big problem, and if it's not an enemy we'll try to ally with him. Zenobia. And if he doesn't accept? Rias. He will accept, since we will tell him what the benefits of being allied with the factions are. She said confidently. Ross. Okay, let's go now. We still have to finish what we left last night. Looking seductively at Issei. The others did the same and left in a magic circle. Issei-san. He was entering his house as quickly as possible so as not to attract attention and quickly go to his room. Once there he went to take a bath, change his clothes and lie down on his bed. He was about to fall asleep. But. Where is? A scream was heard throughout the mansion, which made the chestnut open his irritated eyes suddenly. He got out of bed and went to see who the bastard was who interrupted his rest. As he stormed out of his room, he saw it was Akeno, who was pacing desperately. Issei. Why the hell are you screaming? He screamed in his mind, watching hidden as the messy black-haired girl, all apparently looking for something. And that Asia is approaching. Asia? Akeno-san, why did she scream? And why does she mess up what we cleaned? She asked the last thing a little annoyed. Akeno. My book of magic and sorcery disappeared. Seeing the blonde. Asia. Didn't you forget it somewhere else in the house? Or maybe you left it at the club. Akeno. Yes, I should have left it there. Well, let's go, Issei-kun must be impatient. He said, recovering his smile. Asia. Yes, let's not keep Isaac-san waiting. Going with Akeno to the older chestnut's room while being heard by Issei. Issei. Impatient for what? He asked himself. Until his mind clicked remembering that last night they were doing. Issei. Damn. They're probably going to be bucking and not let me sleep again. He thought, already pissed off from always hearing how his brother has hex with his ex-harem and they didn't let him sleep. Rick. Why don't you just kill them? Issei. No, not yet, I have to move house first to be able to do that. Rick. Why? Issei. If I do it living here, who do you think they're going to suspect? Remember that those idiots still think I'm a human who can't do much, so if I leave here, they'll think it was someone who is an enemy of the factions. Rick. And what are you planning to do now? Issei. Okay. I'll go to a hotel. I still have a lot of money from that pack of Oppi Dragon. Rick. I thought they froze your account. Issei. Yes, but before they did I took out most of it, put it in several suitcases, and hid it in a small door inside the closet. Rick. How did I not know? Issei. I don't know, that's your problem. Rick. Okay, if you're going out, do it now. Something annoying. Issei. Okay, but don't get angry. He thought, going to change his clothes and then leaving his house, but not before taking several phages of money in a bag. Chapter 12. The chestnut tree is seen walking through the dark streets of Kuo. Issei. Shit. How come I can't find an available hotel? I want to sleep. Rick. If you hadn't beaten up every male receptionist at the hotels you went to, you'd be useful to us. Issei. It wasn't my fault that each of them kicked me out for thinking I was drugged. Rick. Well, with your appearance and the drug tone you were speaking in, you weren't helping. Besides, to put things straight, you'd be sleeping right now. Issei. Okay, now at this moment we only have one option, because I don't plan on sleeping on the street. Rick. And what is that option? Intrigued. Issei. You'll see. He said in his mind with a smile. An hour later. Our protagonist was walking down a somewhat neglected street while people looked at him with malicious eyes. Issei. Well, we're here. Standing in front of a door. Rick. Really? This is your big idea? The brunette entered and immediately saw many girls doing private dances for several men, some of whom put money in the girls' bras. Others headed to rooms with one or two girls while hugging each other as music played. Rick. Don't tell me you're going to do what I think you're going to do. Issei. I have no choice. Besides, I don't keep anything from anyone, so taking advantage of the bug. Going to sit in one of the armchairs. Then a girl approaches him. Imagine her without her ears. Tell me, what kind of services do you want? Dancing, alcohol, or me? He said seductively. Issei. Rick. Rick. What? Issei. I lost my sleep. He told her in his mind. Issei. Will you? Without a doubt. He said more seductively. But that will cost you. Sitting on his legs and wrapping her arms around the chestnut's neck. Issei. And how much would it be? 9,000 yen per hour. I don't know how the economy works in Japan. Issei. Okay. And what are we waiting for? The girl smiled and stood up from the brunette's legs, who did the same from the armchair. Issei. But first I need to know your name. Oh? Forgive my rudeness. My name is Yoon, but I also need to know the name of who I'm going to shout. Said the already identified Yoon with a more seductive voice. Issei. Well Yoon, my name is Issei, I remember it well. Yoon. Rest assured. Taking Issei's hand and then leading both of them to a somewhat large room. Yoon threw Issei onto the bed and then got on top of him and started kissing him. The kiss lasted 2 minutes and then they separated due to lack of air, leaving a trail of saliva. The brunette quickly took off his pants and then slowly undressed the girl in front of him. Issei. Rick. Rick. Are you? Issei. I told you the other time that I would compensate you for helping me, right? Rick. Yeah, what about that? Issei. Okay. This will be the reward, I'll give you half of my body. From top to bottom, do you think so? Rick. You tempt me, let's do it. So they did. Both had a half-body position. Elsewhere. In the underworld there was a party in which the Nordic and Olympic Yakes were also present. Just like the Gremory, Citri and Volley team groups. Everyone had a good time chatting or drinking. But they were interrupted by a magic circle that appeared in the middle of the room. And from it appeared someone who they thought they had killed. Rizavam. Hello leaders. He said with a smile. But his appearance was deplorable. He was missing an arm as well as an eye, his skin became so pale that he looked like a dead person, and he was in a wheelchair. Zersich. How are you still alive? As I recall, you died when the Trihexa was sealed. The other leaders nodded. Rizavam. Although I would like to, I didn't come to talk to you about myself, rather, I came for the… Pointing with his only hand at Isaac, who remained expressionless. Rizavam. It's about time, kid. Leaving others confused. Rias. What is Isaac-kun talking about? The chestnut tree did not respond. Instead he switched to his balance breaker, but without the helmet. He started walking slowly until he stood in front of Rizavam with an expressionless face. Everyone thought I would kill him. But he knelt in front of him. As Rizavam smiled wider and placed his hand on Issei's head. Those present were in shock, including Vali and his group. But the most affected were the Gremory bitches girls. Ross. Issei, why are you like this? She said, scared by what the brown-haired man did. Rizavam. Isn't it obvious? In my condition, I can't do anything. I'll be dead soon. So he will be my successor, the one who will destroy everything, free Trihexa, the new ruler, and the one who will kill them all. That left those present even more speechless. Serafal. Issei, please say that's not true, Issei. The aforementioned turned to see everyone. If I just sketch a sinister smile. Issei. How you should see their faces. He laughed like a maniac while everyone looked at him with fear and wide eyes. While inside the booster gear, sobs were heard. But those sobs were from a woman. This one had red hair and wings of the same color. She was crying inconsolably while repeating a single word. Dragon. Issei, 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 sniff Issei. He repeated while crying. Out of the booster gear. Issei. Well, Rizavam-sama, it's time to start the plan, don't you think? Rizavam. You're right. Let's go. Creating a magic circle with great effort. And before anyone could do or say anything, they disappeared, leaving everyone in silence. Chapter 13. The room had fallen silent. No one could utter a single word. The most shocked were the Gremory group, as they couldn't believe what just happened. On the other hand, the faction leaders were trying to assimilate what happened a few moments ago. Until someone decided to break the ice. Zersich. The party is cancelled, everyone can leave. Those words brought the guests out of shock, and without saying anything else, little by little the guests left until only the Gremory, Citri and Vali groups remained along with the faction leaders. Zersich. Girls, you'd better spend the night here in the underworld. The Gremorys didn't say anything. They were still quite affected by Isaac's revelation. Issei's son. He was lying on top of the club room along with Yoon, who hugged and used the chestnut's chest as a pillow. Yoon. It was better than I expected. He said it with a wide smile. Issei. Now it would be 36,000 yen, right? With a smile. Yoon. That's right, baby. Issei. And you don't want them to be 72,000. Yoon. Wow, you're very energetic. But hey, ready for round 2. Issei. I always am. Betting on top of Yoon and then starting to kiss her passionately. Lemon skipped. The next day. 1:30 p.m. Our protagonist was walking down the street with a satisfied smile. Rick. And why that slobbery smile? Issei. What do you mean, why? I'm not a virgin anymore. If I die, I won't do it knowing that I couldn't have my first time with a pretty girl. Rick. Speaking of her, she was pretty nice, don't you think? Issei. Now that you mention it, you're right, she was very kind. She treated me well when I invited her to breakfast. Rick. Yeah, hey, don't you feel like something really bad is going to happen? Issei. Yes, I have a bad feeling. But he didn't realize that he had already arrived at the mansion. But by chance he approached a window that overlooked the living room. He poked his head out to see if anyone was there. But I didn't expect the leaders of the biblical, Yokai and Nordic factions to be there. So the brown-haired boy decided to listen to what they were talking about, since it seemed like they were talking about something important. Inside the mansion. Both the aforementioned leaders and the groups that were at the party were talking in the living room. Only the Gremorys were crying. Azazel. That bastard. How could he have betrayed us? The mutant crow said it angrily. Michael. It's a tragedy with the Sekiryuutei on the enemy's side, we are at a very big disadvantage. Said the dove. Zersich. The worst thing is that he is Rizavam's successor and they will release Trihexa once again. Said the frustrated bat, V. Yasaka. And what will we do now? Concerned. Auden. The best thing we can do is be alert in case any attack reaches one of our factions. The dirty old man said seriously. Zersich. That would be the most sensible thing to do since we haven't recovered from the last fight against Trihexa yet. Worried. Azazel. TSK, if only Issei had more skills. Everyone's mind clicked when they mentioned the brown-haired man who was listening to everything from the window. Michael. Oh no, we completely forgot about young Issei. Or worried. Yasaka. We must tell him and explain that it was all a misunderstanding. Issei's son. Issei. What a misunderstanding, bitch. From the beginning you wanted to replace me with my brother and you say it's a misunderstanding. Back in the room. Rias and the others, upon hearing Issei's name, didn't say anything and ran to the aforementioned room. When they arrived they hoped he would be there and explain to him that it was all a mistake. But when they opened the door they didn't find the chestnut tree. Kaneko. Something stinks. Holding his nose. Akeno. What are you talking about, Kaneko? The aforementioned pointed to the bathroom. They all went to the bathroom thinking he would be there. But there was nothing either. Rias. It is not. The Redeed said discouraged. But once again he saw Kaneko pointing at the bathroom ceiling. They all looked at the ceiling and saw that there was an unremarkable opening. Zenovia. What is this? She asked confused. The white-haired girl grabbed a broom handle that was lying around and pushed that small opening with the handle. Barely did some black clothes alley in front of them. Immediately a foul odor filled the bathroom, causing the girls to cover their noses. Ross. Why does it smell so bad? Seeing the clothing. The white-haired Nekomata came closer and looked at him in more detail. Kaneko. This is soaked in blood. He said it would be. The others were surprised to hear that. Asia. Be blood. Why? A little scared. Akeno. Now that I remember Azazel-sama reported that Issei-kun killed some fallen angels. And he ordered that he be monitored along with the other factions. Rias. It's true, he's been acting strange too. Maybe that's why. Somewhat worried. Asia. No. Issei-sen wouldn't do that, he's not that kind of person, he's not a murderer. Worried and a little scared. Zenovia. And how do you explain this? Aiming at the clothing. Rias. Don't fight, it would be better to show this. With a magic circle he lifted the clothes and went to the room with the others. Upon arrival, everyone in the room covered their noses. Ali. Why did they bring that? It smells like shit. But the stuffy nose. Rias. This is Issei's and what smells so bad is that this is soaked in blood. That surprised those present. Michael. Blood. And whose? Zersich. Are you sure that's Issei's? Ross. That's right, we found him in his bathroom. Serious and somewhat worried. Michael. So. Azazel. What they told me was true, he killed those fallen angels. Rias. He's also been behaving strangely. Yasaka. How? Intrigued. Kaneko. Issei-senpai has been talking to himself lately. Auden. Talking to himself. He asked only to receive a nod. Michael. What do we do now? Zersich. We have to find him, we have to get him back with us. And re-engage him with the girls. The others present thought about it for a few seconds and then agreed yes. The Gremory girls were happy since their Issei would come back to them and ask for forgiveness, cough cough bitches cough. Issei-san. They only saw and heard what they were talking about. Issei. Damn, I completely forgot to wash that thing. Rick. And what will you do? Issei. I have to get out of here, but first I need to get some things out. Rick. I still can't believe they still think you're going back to them. Issei. Yes, especially that Redeed, after leaving me almost dead she still thinks I'll come back and the others are stupid too. Rick. It would be best to go somewhere else until they leave and you can get what you need. Issei. Yes, I'll go train somewhere else. Leaving the place to some mountains outside the city. Upon arrival he began to do basic exercises as he did not want to attract attention. It was like that for a few hours. Since when do you premiere? He heard a voice he didn't want to hear. Issei. What do you want with me, Isaac? He asked coldly. Isaac. Oh come on. Aren't you happy to see me, brother? With a mocking smile. Issei. No, rather it disgusts me. Isaac. Just because I stole your girls. Issei. No, not because of that, but because 2 days ago I found you in the middle of the living room masturbating with a picture of yourself with makeup on. Holding back laughter. That bothered the older chestnut tree. Isaac. Were you there? Issei. I knew you were somewhat effeminate, but I never thought you would be one of those PFFF Yahaja, only you are so stupid as to do it in the middle of the room, Jaja. He started laughing because he couldn't hold it in anymore. Isaac. Shut up. Going to hit his brother with a booster gear. Play the music above the title. A blow that was easily stopped by the younger chestnut. Issei. And apart from being a faggot, a masochist. He punched him in the stomach, knocking the wind out of him and sending him tumbling across some trees. Isaac. How is it what? Issei. Am I that strong? Well, I had a little help. Approaching his brother who stood up. Issei. More than that useless dragon you have could give me. With a smile. Isaac. Hehe, then it was a good idea to subdue that dragon. Issei. Dragon. Confused. Isaac. What mount said it? Well, it turns out that the great red emperor dragon is female. Issei. That daughter of her bucking dragon mother. Clenching fists. Isaac. What? Did I surprise you? Issei. Yes, in fact I was surprised so with her. Isaac. You were right, but not only with her, but also with the purest angel in heaven, or well, not so pure anymore, like with that black-haired Nekomata. Issei. That doesn't surprise me anymore, it was to be expected. Especially from that sucky cat, but oh well. Taking a big leap backwards and getting into a fighting stance. Issei. Have you come to talk about those boars or to fight? Isaac. Actually to kill you. Getting into a fighting stance. Issei. At least you make it fun, haha. Isaac. So it seems. Balance breaker. Appearing his armor with a red aura. Isaac. I hope you're watching this. Whisper. Inside the booster gear. A Redeed with wings of the same color was chained. Ddraig. Issei, don't face him. Out of the booster gear. Isaac launched himself at Issei with a punch that went to the face. But he dodged it and kneed him in the stomach, followed by a punch in the face. Issei, impact. He screamed, hitting him in the chest and sending him crashing into some trees. Isaac, grrrd damn. He shouted angrily and lunged at Issei once again. He did the same. So they exchanged blows for a few minutes until they separated. The most damaged was Isaac, who had parts of his armor broken and one eye exposed. Issei. Really? I thought you were going to kill me, not entertain me, he. It provoked Isaac more. Isaac. How come you're so damn strong? And before Issei could say anything, several magic circles appeared. And from them came out those who were in the mansion where Issei lived. The aforementioned frowned in annoyance, as did his brother. Everyone got angry when they saw Isaac. But upon seeing Issei, her reaction changed to one of happiness. Rias. I know where you've been. We've been looking for you. The others just nodded with a smile. Issei. What's that to you? You better go if you don't want me to kill you all. That left those present surprised. Rias. Ice-kun, why are you talking to us like that? Threatening to cry. Issei. Shut up, you poor asshole, you have no right to speak to me with such familiarity like all the vermin who are here. He shouted angrily and sadly at those who had just arrived, and even more at Rias for how she called him her Issei. Isaac. Hey. Shall we continue? Issei. It's the only thing I agree with you on, but unfortunately for you, I don't have much time, so I'll finish this quickly. After saying that, his body began to surround itself with blue rays, while his eyes turned the same color and his hair stood on end. That left those present surprised, including his brother and the dragon, who only asked one thing. When did he become so strong? Issei. Okay. I'd like to keep humiliating you, but this is over. At an incredible speed he got in front of Isaac, who didn't see when he moved. Issei, lightning strikes. After saying the name of his technique, he launched hundreds of punches into his brother's stomach in a matter of seconds. As he finished, Isaac vomited a massive amount of blood and fell unconscious with his armor shattered. Chapter 14. Isaac had been knocked unconscious by the beating his brother gave him. Meanwhile, the supernaturals were amazed at how strong he became. Rias. Aye. Issei. Well, you guys were having hex with that faggot. I was training, killing rogue demons, protecting the city. Something you should be doing with Sona. Seeing them seriously and still with their rays. Surzich. Issei-kun, we made a very stupid mistake and we are sorry. Issei. A simple sorry isn't going to fix things. And it wasn't just stupid, that no stupidity is nothing compared to what they did, they were so retarded to trust a complete stranger. And you. Targeting Gabriel. Issei. You bucking retarded pigeon, you're supposed to have the ability to read other people's hearts. You tested me, but you just slept with him without even knowing him well. The others except the Gremory were surprised and saw Gabriel, who was very embarrassed and on the verge of tears. Issei. I still don't know how you and your brother didn't fall. And you. Pointing out the demons. Issei. You know. I don't know why I'm telling you this. What else can you expect from demons? That's their nature after all. And you. Pointing to Yasaka. Issei. You're going according to your vixen nature. Well, I'm done. I don't have time to see vermin. He turned to see his unconscious brother and kicked him so far away. So at full speed he went to pick up his things to his now old house, leaving the supernaturals with much sadness and the Gremorys with many tears. Rias. We have to go to the mansion quickly. He said, wiping away his tears. Akeno. But what are you saying? He hates us all. Rias. No. We can still get it back. Surzich. Rias, are you sure of what you're doing? You saw what he did to that bastard without even a moment's notice. I think he won't care and will attack us all without holding back. Rias. It doesn't matter. I want to have it again. Making a magic circle transporting everyone to Issei's room. When they arrived, all they saw was that the closet was open and his sword was no longer there. Azazel. He's already gone. Something sad. Rias. Ice. My ice has to come back. We did something stupid, but we need to convince him to come back. Gabriel. I have an idea. Everyone turned to look at Seraphine. Akeno. And what is it? Gabriel. What if when we find him we erase his memory? That way he'll be back to normal and everything will return to normal. Everyone present thought about it and came to the conclusion that it was a good idea. Azazel. By the way, where are the Haidu lords? He asked curiously since he hadn't seen them in a long time. Rias. 2 months ago Isaac told us that they went on a trip without warning, but now I don't know if they actually went on a trip. He said in a serious and a little worried manner. Sirzich, it won't be. Azazel. That would be the most likely. He is capable of everything. Yasaka. TSK, I'll never forgive that bastard. Clenching fists. They were talking without realizing that a certain green-eyed blonde understood what they were referring to. And she began to cry because she considered them her parents. After a few seconds they realized that the blonde was crying and tried to comfort her. Time skip. It had been a year since Issei last had contact with the factions. They searched for him all over the world, but they didn't achieve anything because it was as if the earth had swallowed him up. While the chestnut met some people who in some ways were very similar to him. But after something crazy happened they had to separate and never saw each other again. Present. Issei was sitting on a tree branch while eating an apple. The only difference he had was that he was taller and his muscles increased a little, and he had his sword in a sheath that hung on his back. Rick, Issei. Issei. What's up? Rick. Don't you think it's time? Issei. You're talking about not just wait a little longer. Rick. How much? Issei. Well, when we are in trouble it will be our ace up our sleeve like that time. Rick. Well, if you say so, but I don't think anything compares to that time. Issei. You're right. I almost suggested we merge right then. Rick. How do you think they are? Issei. I don't know, but I miss them. Especially the cat reflexes. Rick. They weren't reflexes, they were something else. But anyway, changing the subject, do you have any new techniques in mind? Issei. Not at the moment, but I'll think of something. Jumping down from the branch. Letting it be seen that he was in a forest with a path. The brown-haired boy walked away in the most normal way in the world, or well, he considered it so since he skipped along. He went until he reached an inn that was in the same forest. Issei. No moms, how convenient. Rick. You can't be luckier. So Issei went to the inn. Upon entering, he was greeted by a rather elderly gentleman. Sir. How many nights do you want, young man? Issei. Just one, and there is a question, breakfast for the guests. Sir. Yes, it is a courtesy. Issei. Well, that's fine then. The gentleman gave him the key with the room number. The chestnut tree went in the direction of the number. Upon arriving, he opened the door. The room was simple. There was a bed, a small table next to it, and beneath them was a green rug. There was also a small radio on the table. Issei. Well. Judging by the look of the room, the low price is understandable. Rick. Why did you ask if there was breakfast? Issei. I'm too lazy to go somewhere else for breakfast. After saying that, he threw himself onto the bed face down. He stayed like that for a few seconds and changed position to lying down normally. Issei had his eyes closed, enjoying the silence. After a few seconds he opened his eyes and looked down. Issei. Mothers, what's up? He said when he saw a loli with black hair and grey eyes. It was none other than Office, who was lying on Issei's chest while watching him. Issei. How the hell did I not realize? Office. How long? Issei. Office, what are you doing here? Office. I just wanted to check on you. The factions are frantically searching for you. Issei. Really? Well, that doesn't matter. Office. Where have you been all this time? Issei. Well, that's a story for another time. Office. Okay. And what do you plan to do now? Issei. Well, nothing for now. Office. I see. Okay, can I have this tonight? With a small blush on her cheeks. Issei. Well. I don't see the problem. Looking out the window of the room that it was getting dark. Chapter 15. The next day. The chestnut tree was waking up from the annoying rays of the sun. As his eyes adjusted to the light, he looked to the side where Office was supposed to be. But he noticed that she was no longer there. He didn't give it any importance and sat on the bed. Rick. Good morning, buddy. He shouted, making Issei grab his head. Issei. Damn, Rick, what's your problem? He shouted angrily. Rick. I can't say good morning to you. With a somewhat mocking tone. Issei. Yes, you can, but not like that. Shaking his head a little. But oh well. What time is it? He turned to look at the clock in the room and saw that it was 8:10 a.m. But then there's a knock on the door. Issei. He went to open the door and didn't see anyone. But his gaze went to the floor and he saw a tray with a cup of coffee, along with a plate with pancakes that were bathed in honey. Considering the price, it's reasonable. He carefully lifted the tray and closed the door with his foot. A few minutes passed and the chestnut tree ate all of its breakfast. After that, it got ready and left the lodge. And without anyone seeing him, he took a giant leap. 5 hours later. The chestnut tree was in what is known as the city of Tokyo, seeing what he could do and checking if he could stay there to live. While walking quietly through a small park, he was interrupted by a girl who clung to his arm. Issei. Hey, what are you doing? Looking at her out of the corner of his eye, a little annoyed. Girl. Help me please, she whispered in a scared tone. Issei. What? Look at the problems you're causing, said a tall, somewhat fat bald guy who looked very upset. The girl, seeing him, clung more tightly to the brown-haired man and hid her face in the brown-haired man's arm and began to tremble. Look kid, I don't have time for nonsense, so give me that girl and all this will be solved. He didn't seem to have much patience. Issei. He didn't say anything. He noticed the girl's reaction when she saw that guy. And seeing her better, her clothes were worn and dirty just like her hair was dirty. The local people just watched to see what the chestnut tree's response would be. The guy was starting to get impatient. Boy. This will be my last warning. Give me the girl or you'll regret it. He slowly approached the brunette and the girl, who, upon seeing him approaching, began to cry. Issei. He continued without saying anything. He only felt his arms start to get wet and when he saw that people were looking he sighed in tiredness. No, that simple word made the guy get angry and stand in front of the brunette. Fine. You wanted it. Throwing a punch at Issei's face. But he stopped it easily and quickly bent the guy's arm and thus made him fall to the ground and put his foot on his back. Let me go you bastard og. He couldn't finish because Issei pulled the guy's arm further. Issei. Well now you seem the girl a little serious, tell me what happened. Girl. Well, he and my little sister had me locked in the basement of his house and hid us there. That went on for a year. Today he got distracted and I escaped, but not before leaving my sister hiding with her head down. Issei. And how old is your little sister? Girl. She is 9 years old. Issei. Just looked at the guy, who was sweating a lot. Can someone call the police? He shouted to the people around him. Rick. Why don't you do it? Issei. If I had a cell phone I would do it. So a woman called the police. And after 2 damn hours, a patrol car arrived and took the guy away, but not before hearing the girl's statement. Issei. It doesn't matter what city, country or continent you're in. The police will always take longer than a pizza delivery guy in traffic, he thought as he watched the guy being taken away. Girl. Sorry, calling Issei's attention, who turned to look at her. Thanks for defending me. Any guy would have handed me over, playing with her fingers a little shyly. Issei. You don't have to be thankful, and you, sister. Girl. I gave them the address of that guy's house and the police will go to get my sister out of there. They will also make her testify. Issei. And what will you do? Girl. I don't know. They told me to come back tonight to pick up my sister at the police station. They gave me the address. Issei. Well, what do you think if you come with me in the meantime? Simply. Girl. She was surprised by the brown-haired boy's invitation. Are you sure? I mean. He must have things to do and I'd just be a burden. Embarrassed. Issei. I really don't have anything to do. I was just here because I was bored scratching the back of his neck. Girl. I see. Well, if that's the case. Okay, smiling sweetly. It's true we haven't introduced ourselves. My name is Karen. And yours? Issei. Ah. My name is Issei, nice to meet you, Karen, with a small smile. Okay. Let's go. The girl named Karen nodded her head. 3 hours later. Issei and Karen were walking through a plaza. Karen was a little embarrassed because she made the brunette spend money on her clothes and they stayed in a hotel since the girl didn't have a home and there she took a bath. Issei. Is something wrong? You look very uncomfortable. Karen. It was just that you didn't need to spend money on me, with her head bowed. Issei. Don't worry, I wanted to do it. You look good, by the way, looking at her with a smile that made the girl blush a little. Karen. Thank you, with a smile and her hands together. Issei. It's already getting dark. We should go get your sister at the police station, right? Glancing at the pink-haired girl, who nodded, and they walked off, although Karen looked rushed. An hour and a half passed and it was already dark and they arrived at the delegation. Karen hurriedly looked for her sister while the brunette just followed her. Until they saw a girl who was around 9 to 11 years old waiting in a chair next to a door. The girl, upon seeing her older sister, rushed out to hug her. Karen did the same and they hugged tightly. So there were a few minutes in which Issei was getting bored. Chapter 16. Both sisters separated from the long hug they gave each other. Karen. What did you do while I was gone? They asked me how long we were at that bad guy's house and what he did to us. Karen. Did they only ask you things like that? Yes. Then they told me to wait here. Karen. What a relief. Well, I want you to meet. When she turned around, she saw that the brunette was eating some chips. Where did you get that? Pointing at the bag of chips. Issei. Well, since you were in your touching meeting and it was going to take a while, I went to the corner store to buy some chips, grabbing 3 and eating them, and when I came back they were still hugging each other. Karen. With a drop of sweat running down her neck. Okay. Well, as I was saying, turning to look at her sister, this is Issei. He was the one who immobilized the bad guy, and turning to look at the brunette again, this is my little sister, her name is Shiomi. Shiomi. You, nice to meet you, sir, she said somewhat shyly. Issei. Likewise, Shiomi. Did I say that right? Seeing Karen, she nodded. Well, we'd better go now. Approaching a dumpster and throwing away the bag of chips that was already empty, the first thing will be to buy you clothes and then go to the hotel. I want to sleep now. So the 3 of them went to a clothing store. The girls' clothes will be the ones in the image from the previous chapter. After that they went to the hotel where they were staying, and upon entering the room, the brunette threw himself onto one of the beds and fell asleep right there face down. The next day. Issei was slowly waking up. And when it moved a little. Issei. Hug. Shit, my neck, grabbing his neck and starting to rub it a little. Rick. Good morning, buddy. How did you wake up? Well. Relaxed. No neck pain. Issei. Shut up, cracking his neck and relieving the pain a little. Well, recapitulating. Good morning, partner. Karen. Who are you talking to? She asked, making Issei turn around quickly and seeing that Shiomi also looked at him strangely. Issei. How long have you been awake? Karen. For a few hours now. Issei. Do they get up so early? Karen. Huh. But it's 3 in the afternoon, pointing to the clock in the room reading 3:29 p.m. But now tell us, who were you talking to? Issei. Ima, if I told you that there is a little voice in my head that speaks to me, would you believe me? Seeing the girl and the girl who were a little confused. Karen. Maybe. But we'd say you didn't have any friends and that little voice is your imaginary friend. Rick. Not far from reality. Issei. That offends me. But you're right, well. Changing the subject, what will you do? But he saw that Karen got a little nervous. What's going on? Karen. Okay. I actually wanted to ask you something about that, with her head looking down. Issei. And what would it be? Karen. Well, can we accompany you? Still with her head bowed and the girl nodding. Issei. Let's see, how do you want to accompany me? A bit out of place if I remember correctly, I told you that I didn't have a home either. Karen. I know. But the truth is, if we stay here, maybe another guy just like or worse than the last one will appear. Rick. Here's. Issei. And now what? Rick. You have to keep in mind that if we take them with us they will be in danger, just as you will have to tell them about the supernatural. Issei. I know. But you're right, a guy just as bad or worse than the previous one could appear. And he might not be human. Remember, there are demons or fallen angels hanging around. Like what happened to me with Rainer. Rick. It's your decision. Issei. I didn't know how to respond. In either case they would be in danger, he already liked them. No one had liked him so quickly since the time he got together with the guys who were similar to him. And he couldn't risk it. Fine. You can come with me. But before that you have to know something that maybe will throw you off a little. Karen. And what would it be? Issei. Okay. Pay attention, this is going to be a bit long, so I'd proceed to tell you about the supernatural, you know. The typical stuff and a little bit about his life, although of course, omitting his objective. Karen. She was speechless for what she heard, while her sister didn't quite understand. You're seriously crazy. What a bad joke. Issei. It's not that I'm crazy, or well. Maybe a little, but that doesn't mean I have to joke about something like that. He saw Karen shaking her head. Do you want me to prove it to them? Karen. I don't know how you're going to prove something that doesn't exist, but well, let's see how you do it. Crossing her arms and with a confident smile, come on, do it. The brown-haired boy moved away a little from the girl, and the girl still didn't understand. Issei. If it reaches them, I won't be held responsible. He separated his legs slightly and clenched his fists. At that, you can see Issei's eyes turn blue and his hair stand on end. Suddenly, lightning began to surround him. Something that shocked Karen greatly. Karen. I say why you are. She couldn't finish when she saw the brown-haired boy's expression in detail and froze in fear. But he didn't realize that Shiomi saw him too, and she was shaking a lot. And suddenly tears started to come out and she started to back away. Issei. Well. He said very seriously. But he saw how the girl was and stopped releasing his power. Issei. Shiomi. He stands in front of the girl and kneels down. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. The change in attitude is a side effect of that state, I didn't mean to scare you. Elsewhere. In the underworld. More specifically, in the Gremory family mansion. A certain Redeed was seen lying on a sofa. She was very depressed and her eyes had very large dark circles. But there was something else. Her belly was more swollen than normal. Rias. I swear isonku-sen that I'm going to kill you. And I'm going to get my isonku-sen back, she said, clenching her fists. You took what's mine. And I'm going to make you pay, damn it. Chapter 17. 2 months later. Issei, Shiomi and Karen were walking through the city of Tokyo. Only the girl and the child felt uncomfortable. It hadn't been more than 2 hours since the brunette showed them his rays and now they couldn't see him like before. Although only almost 2 days had passed. But Issei was a different case. He was thinking about the right time to go and kill his brother and the supernaturals once and for all. And the truth is, he wasn't sure if he should accept Karen's request. Now it would be more difficult for him to fulfill his objective. Although, if things got dangerous, he would have to stay away from them so as not to endanger them as well. But they didn't realize that a guy was following them and Issei didn't realize because he was thinking about the previous thing. Shiomi. And now where are we going? She asked curiously. Issei. I don't know. I usually wander around training, increasing my abilities and creating techniques. What do you want to do? I still have money left. Karen. Well, I couldn't tell you. What do you want to do, Shiomi? Looking at the aforementioned. Shiomi. I want to go eat, she said, touching her stomach. Issei. Well. I guess I have enough, damn, I have to find a way to get money, I almost don't have any anymore, he thought somewhat nervously. So the three of them headed to a place. But suddenly Issei gets serious and stops dead in his tracks. Karen. Issei, is something wrong? Confused. Issei. I'll go see something. You guys go ahead, I won't be long. Without saying anything else, he left the place, leaving Karen very confused. The chestnut tree went to an alley and made a huge leap to the roof of a building. Upon landing, he looked around and saw a hooded man looking toward the street and seemed to be searching for something or someone. Issei. What a surprise, he said aloud, causing the person to turn around abruptly, and judging by the lower part of his face he was very surprised. Didn't you see it coming? With a mocking smile, but at the same time full of malice. The subject simply stood still. Issei. It seems not approaching the subject now. The only thing I want is taking the hooded man by the collar of his clothing. Why the hell are you following me, he said with a voice from beyond the grave. The brown-haired man, seeing that she didn't respond, smiled. Issei. It seems that you are an intelligent person, maybe that's why you do what you do, so I recommend you use that intelligence and answer my question, he said, bringing out killer instinct, making the guy pee himself in fear, being noticed by Issei. And with more reason you should tell me, since I think you wouldn't like to die with your pants wet. The guy trembled even more, but still nodded. Good, I knew that way you wouldn't let yourself be killed. Now tell me, why are you following me? The ones who sent me to watch you were the Mayu, and they didn't just send me. Previously they sent several from different factions, he said a little calmly. Issei. TSK, those bastards, fine. I'll give you 5 seconds to be out of my visit. The guy nodded, somewhat relieved, and created a magic circle. But before you go, tell those bastards not to come near me and also not to send anyone to watch me. Otherwise, I'll personally go kill every demon, angel, fallen angel and yokai until they're all extinct, he said seriously. The subject nodded and disappeared into the magic circle. Issei. Rick. What's up, he said, pretending not to know anything. Issei. The plan is advanced. In a few days we will go to the underworld and destroy it completely, he thought, and his counterpart smiled maliciously. Rick. And why in a few days? Issei. I've softened a lot. It's been a while since I killed something or someone. I'll use those days to get used to it again. Rick. I also think you softened a lot, but what will you do with the girl and the girl? Issei. I'll tell them that I have matters that only I can attend to. But before leaving I'll get some money and give it to them so they can sustain themselves until I return. Rick. Sounds perfect to me. I was getting really bored. Issei. We'll start at night, was the last thing he said in his mind, and then jumped into the same alley he came from and went to the food place. Upon arriving, he looked for Karen and Shiomi. After a few minutes, he found them each eating a burger with fries. As he got closer he saw that they had already ordered for him too. Issei. Hello. Everything okay? Everything correct? Karen. Of course. And we asked for you so you wouldn't have to wait eating a French fry. Issei. Yes, I noticed. And thanks for that, sitting down and starting to eat. At night. It was already early morning, just as Karen and Shiomi were sleeping plastically in a hotel room where they stayed. But our protagonist was putting on a hat and a black jacket. Rick. And what's the hat for? Issei. "It's cold," was the only thing he said to his counterpart in his mind to carefully leave the room and later leave the hotel without anyone noticing and the cameras not capturing it. Once on the street he started walking. "Rick. Do you think there are rogue demons or fallen angels here?" "Issei. I'm sure they are. They're everywhere. They're like cockroaches," he said with disgust. He continued walking for a few minutes until he came to an abandoned factory. "Issei. How convenient," he said, seeing the factory and entering. As she walked, a smile appeared on her face. "Issei. Brings back nice memories." "Rick. Yeah, nice memories and all, but remember why we came." "Issei. True. Damn, I did soften up looking from side to side and noticing that something had quickly passed between the damaged machinery." "Rick. Okay. Just need to confirm and we'll have fun." "Issei. Okay. Let's see whatever that thing is made of," seeing how it kept moving. When the thing lunged at him, Issei punched it in the face, knocking it back a few feet. "Issei. Okay. Let's have some fun," getting into a fighting stance and launched himself at the thing. Chapter 18. In a very dark dawn, more specifically in an abandoned factory, there was a chestnut on his knees in a large pool of blood and intestines, looking up with a big smile. "Issei. Oh damn, I forgot how good it felt," laughed the chestnut. "Rick. We have to do something about your power reduction. Too much fat around the waist," he said mockingly. "Issei. I won't kill you just because I can't," he said, somewhat annoyed and standing up to continue searching. In this way, the chestnut tree left the place to look for more renegade demons or something he could kill. In the end, he couldn't find anything. "Issei. Damn. This city is the least inhabited by renegade demons that I've seen," he said, annoyed. "Rick. There are no rebel fallen angels either." "Issei. We have to go to another city to see if there is." "Rick. And how would you tell the girl?" "Issei. I don't know. Hell, they won't let me go. Although I have nothing to lose by asking." "Rick. Yeah, you lose the chance to go to another city." "Issei. We could take them, right?" "Rick. If you have enough money you could." "Issei. You are very pessimistic." "Rick. You seem to have grown fond of both of them." "Issei. I won't deny it. Certainly, even though it's only been a year since those girls tricked me, I couldn't help but grow fond of them." "Rick. You know. What I really wanted to do was show you that you shouldn't even trust humans, since most of them are the worst." "Issei. I know. But not all are like that. Humans can be disloyal, depraved, evil, murderers, manipulators, lustful, selfish, and many other things. Still, the few who are not like that are the ones you can truly fight for, or the ones who do deserve power, instead of the bastards who currently have it, besides that there are more yet to be born, and they can be saved." "Rick. You're crazy. But let's drop the subject since I don't want to argue with you." "Issei. I say the same," he said this time in his mind. So, with nothing else to do, she went to the place where her friends were staying. Upon arriving, he quickly changed and jumped into one of the beds, not caring if there was anyone there or not. The next day. Issei. Slowly opening his eyes. What happened?" he asked, confused and sleepy. "Karen. What do you think you're doing with my sister?" she shouted, surprised and annoyed. "Issei. With your sister?" Confused, he directed his gaze down to see a miraculously asleep Shiomi on top of him while smiling. The brown-haired boy stared at him for a few seconds until he came to. "Issei." Opening his eyes wide. This is not what you think," he said nervously and avoiding moving as little as possible so as not to wake up because of his order. "I mean, the girl." "Karen. What is it then?" she said, already a little calmer. "Issei. Well, oh shit, I was supposed to sleep on the couch," he thought, looking at the couch. But he got even more excited when he saw that the bloody clothes he wore the night before were there. "Shit. Karen. Hey, it smells weird." "Issei. Hey." Getting his attention. "Look, I'd like to explain what happened, but I'm not in a good position. So if you help me get your sister up without her waking up, it will be faster." The girl thought about it for a few seconds. "Karen. Fine. But I'll know if you're lying," she said, approaching Shiomi and gently and delicately picking her up. As soon as Issei saw the girl separated from him at an imperceptible speed, she disappeared from Karen's vision. "Karen. Hey. You won't be able to escape," she said, turning around to see Issei standing. "What are you doing?" "Issei. I was just hot," he said nervously, pretending he didn't throw the blood-stained suit out the window. "Karen. Okay, just don't escape," she said, putting Shiomi gently on the bed. "Now like this, explain to me," she said seriously. "Issei. What happens is that last night I stayed up very late and forgot that I had to sleep on the couch, so since I was very sleepy, I fell asleep in Shiomi's bed. How she appeared on top of me, that I don't know," he said nervously. "Technically it's true." "Karen. Tell the judge," she murmured. "Issei. Karen. Nothing, let's just go for breakfast, it'll be time, she said smiling. Issei. Don't worry, I'll go pick it up, and by the way, I'll get some carbonated water with lemon to clean the blood, he thought. You stay and take care of your sister, he said, now leaving the room, leaving a surprised Karen. About an hour passed, and the chestnut tree came back with a tray of food in one hand and a small bottle in the other. Issei. It's good that there was already one here, he said mentally, keep sleeping, putting the tray on one of the beds. Karen. Yes. I guess he'll wake up in a few minutes. So, they both started to have breakfast. It was something simple, an egg sandwich with orange juice. They were silent for a few more seconds, until. Karen. You left it on, right? Issei. Ugh, I can't talk because he choked on his sandwich. After a few seconds of beating his chest, he was finally able to swallow it completely. Issei. How do you know? He asked, surprised. Karen. I stayed up until shortly after you left. I also saw you wearing a strange outfit. What did you do on the street? And where is the outfit? The brown-haired boy no longer knew what to answer since he didn't want to scare her away. After a few seconds of awkward silence, he made a decision. Issei. Getting a little serious, I haven't been completely honest with you. This confused the pink-haired girl, so she continued, you see, there's something I didn't tell you. I'll do it now, just don't freak out. Karen. If you tell me that, it must be something serious. Issei. Well, more than serious, it's something, well, you'll judge that when I finish telling you. Karen nodded and paid attention. In that way, Issei told him how killing fallen angels and rogue demons was part of his training and that he became obsessed with it. Of course, she left out some parts as they were too much for her. After finishing telling him, they remained silent for a few minutes that seemed like hours to Issei. Karen. Wow, this I didn't expect it, and where is the suit? Issei. Well, I threw it out the window when you took Xiaomi off my back. And to wash it, I brought this, showing the little bottle. Karen. What is that? Issei. Carbonated water with lemon to cleanse the blood. In fact, I was going to wash it down when we finished breakfast. Karen. I understand, she said calmly. Issei. He took it very well, I'd better wash it before someone sees it, he said, leaving the room with the bottle. Karen stayed still for a few minutes until she let out a sigh and proceeded to wake up her little sister. Chapter 19. A week later. Issei. So. You want to help me? What exactly? He asked doubtfully. The office. To and from the underworld with an expressionless tone. Issei. And why would you do that? Weren't you with those idiots? The office. I'm not on your side. I never liked your brother, and the Red Dragon along with the allied factions went with him. Issei. What do you want in return? The office. How do you know I want something in return? Issei. You don't do things for free. So tell me seriously. The office. Fine. What I want in return for this is that you don't kill the faction leader, she said, something serious. The brown-haired man, upon hearing that, changed his look from a serious one to a very cold one. Issei. Can you repeat that? He said coldly and emanating hostility. Office noticed this, but was not intimidated. Office. Don't kill faction leaders. Issei. Are you kidding me? Do you really think I'm going to accept such stupidity? Besides, why don't you want me to do it? He shouted this quite angrily. Office. Those guys are necessary for the balance of this world to be maintained. Besides, if you do it, other mythologies might come after you. Issei. And why would they go after me? Office. Seeing that you've killed the leaders of the biblical factions, they'll consider you a threat. And they'll most likely go after your power as well. And since you're human, they'll feel entitled to rule over you. She said, her expression unchanged. Issei. Since when do you care about what happens and what I do? Office. Since you made me interested. Issei. What are you saying, Rick? Rick. Well, she has a point. Damn, this girl is really annoying, and yet she's right, I'd say annoying. Issei. Then. I won't be able to kill them. Rick. Issei, I don't think you can wait. Issei. Confused. Rick. He said we couldn't kill the leaders. But he never said we couldn't kill the Gremory. Issei. Oh, that's right. It can be a consolation prize. And he didn't say we couldn't beat them up either. Rick. Right, well, I guess you should accept, he's giving us a ride there and back. Also, see if you get it, you know, he said this with a malicious tone. The brown-haired boy would smile upon hearing that. Issei. Very well, office. I'll accept the deal. He extended his hand. He waited, but the lowly had no intention of reciprocating. No shaking hands then. He lowered his hand. Office. And when do you want to go? Issei. We'll go tomorrow. I'm going to say goodbye to Karen and her sister. Office. Karen. Who is she? Issei. A friend I made a while back. She has a little sister. And since she can't take care of it alone, I'll take care of it myself. Office. I see. Well, I'll come get you tomorrow then. Issei. Good, turning around to leave the forest they were in. After a while, it got dark and she arrived in Tokyo. Having taken care of her friends didn't give her the chance to go to another city. Luckily, at night I found one or another renegade demon. Thanks to that, he realized that his skills had barely diminished. He was just a little rusty. He arrived at the hotel where he was staying to go directly to his shared room. Upon entering, he saw Karen watching television while Shiomi ate a bag of gummies. Issei. Hello, closing the door. Karen. Oh, hello Issei, she said without turning to look at him. Shiomi. Hello Issei Nai-chan, she said with a cute smile, then continued eating. The brown-haired man went to one of the beds to kneel down and take out a black briefcase from under the bed. He stood up and walked over to Karen's side. Once there, he placed his briefcase on her. Karen. What's this? Issei. It's the money I have left. Make sure you spend it sparingly on what you need. Karen. Huh? Hey, what do you mean? Are you going to abandon us? She said, surprised. Shiomi. Will Issei Nai-chan leave? Stopping eating her gummies. Issei. Yes. I really don't know for how long. But let me assure you that I will return to you. Karen. But you can't just leave like that. Besides, what's the reason? Issei. Well, I can't tell you the reason. But yes, it has to do with the supernatural. Karen. Still, what are we supposed to do while you're gone? Issei. I'll go look for an apartment now. I won't be long, just wait. Karen. Hey, S. Shiomi. Karen Ni-chan approaching her sister. Karen. Let's wait for it, shall we? The girl nodded and sat on the bed while she reflected. After a few hours, the chestnut tree would return and take them to their new apartment. Upon arrival, they saw that it was a normal apartment with 2 small bedrooms, a bathroom, and a small space for the kitchen next to the living room, which was also somewhat small. Issei. The rent was very cheap. When I get back, I'll bring more money and take them somewhere bigger. Karen. Issei, about that, when are you leaving? Issei. Tomorrow morning. Karen. I see. Well, you were gone, I thought better of it. I won't be able to make you stay. But do you really promise you'll come back? Issei. Putting his hand on the girl's shoulder. I already said it, right? I'll come back with you when I finish what I have to do, he said with a small smile. Karen gave him a big hug, which the brunette reciprocated. Shiomi also joined in, hugging both of them. The next day. Issei walked down the street while he was thoughtful. He was heading to the same place where he had spoken to Office to take him to the underworld. Without looking where he was walking, he collided with a child, causing him to fall. Issei. Oh damn, hey kid, are you okay? He asked, extending his hand. The child would take it and rise. Child. Don't worry sir, it didn't hurt, he said this smiling. Issei. Okay. Sorry kid and your parents. At that, a brown-haired woman would appear. Woman. Sunji, so you were here, she said, going to see her son. Nothing happened to you? Sunji. No, mom. The woman would turn to look at Issei. Woman. I'm sorry if my son caused you any trouble, she said with a small bow. Issei. Don't worry, you didn't cause me any problems. Well, I'd better go, continuing on his way, see you later. The woman stared at him for a few seconds, then saw her son. Woman. Well, let's go, your sister is waiting for us at home. Sunji. Yes, mommy, he said, grabbing her hand and starting to walk beside her. The chestnut tree had arrived at that forest and would see Office, who was waiting sitting on the branch of a tree. Issei. Hello, how long have you been here? Office. For 30 minutes now, he said expressionlessly. Issei. I see, well, are we leaving now? Office. Coming down from the branch, yes, created a magic circle under both of them, then disappeared into it. Chapter 20. Issei. What happened here? Seeing surprised how the whole city of the underworld was destroyed. Office. It seems that Isaac didn't wait. Issei. He attacked. And he did it alone. Office. No. He came with an exercise of renegade demons and criminal fallen angels. It seems that's what was left of Rizavum's army. Issei. But the idiot didn't wait to grow the exercise and went to attack. Yes. Do you have any plan? He said. Receiving a nod from the lowly. Office. Trihexa must have promised him something. Issei. Promise. But he's sealed, how can he promise things? Or speak from within the seal? Confused. Office. Before dying, Rizavum found a way to communicate with Trihexa. And most likely, when Isaac contacted him, he promised him something in exchange for getting him out of the seal as soon as possible. Issei. How do you know that, by the way? Looking at her with intrigue. Office. I've been keeping an eye on him. But he didn't notice even though I was obvious. I can't see what Rizavum saw in him enough to entrust his plans to him. Issei. With how manipulative and a sissy he can be if he wants to, I wouldn't be surprised if he gave her his ass. Office. Issei, this is serious. Issei. He was serious. Office. Whatever. Just go fast. Issei. Won't you come with me? Office. No. Maybe Volley tried to intervene, so I'll subdue him, starting to walk away. By the way. Be careful, I know you'll also go after the leaders. And they're not easy to keep at bay. Or well, it won't be for you. Issei. How encouraging, he said sarcastically. Office. And when you see that you can't handle them, retreat. Understood. Issei. Since when do you give me orders? Office. Just do it, was the last thing she said, before taking a huge leap and disappearing into the green sky. Issei. Well, now I have to look for him before. Ooh. An explosion was heard all over the place. Issei. Change of plans, he said as he started walking towards where the explosion originated. Elsewhere, a certain person in red armor was facing the three leaders of the biblical factions. Yasaka. TCH. I thought it would be easy. They're starting to give me problems, he thought, dodging a spear of light, which upon impact with the ground, caused a huge explosion. Azazel. Damn. He shouted, having his armor on. Surzich. Where did he get so much power in such a short time? Michael. Azazel, he has one of the power-up bracelets you created, he said, looking seriously at the aforementioned. Azazel. But where did you get it? All the ones I have are in my lab. Surzich. There's no point in thinking about that anymore, we must defeat him. He said, throwing a sphere of power of destruction towards Isaac. The aforementioned countered it with a sphere of dragonic power, causing a huge explosion. From the smoke caused by the explosion, Isaac came out and went at full speed against Michael, who prepared two lightsabers. When the brown-haired boy got close enough, he received a punch from Surzich, who was charged with a good portion of his destructive power. This broke Isaac's helmet, sending him flying. Michael. Azazel, I'm starting to get tired. My magic power is starting to run out. Can you do something? Azazel. I can't do anything about your power. I won't have time to bring a power-up bracelet. But I can use all the power of my sacred gear to weaken it further. But then I'll have a hard time fighting. Michael. I understand. Then Surzich and I will spread it out so you can gather all the power you need, he said, launching himself alongside Surzich against Issei. Without hesitation, Azazel began to gather all the power of his sacred gear into a giant spear of light. This didn't go unnoticed by Issei, but he couldn't do anything because he was fighting with Surzich and Michael. Issei. Damn. Don't get in the way. He shouted, causing an enormous magical power to overflow from him, pushing the demon and the angel a few meters away. He spread his wings and went straight for Azazel. Azazel. Damn. I can't gather my power and attack at the same time. He thought, entering a state of despair, if he hits me, the one who will end up badly will be me. Trying to think of something to prevent that from happening. Surzich and Michael followed him as fast as they could, but they wouldn't arrive in time to stop Issei. The older Haidu was about to hit Azazel, already standing in front of him with his fist ready. He had a huge smile as he saw how the fallen man's face expressed despair. And he wasn't the only one, since Surzich and Michael had the same level of despair as Azazel. But before he could land his blow, a foot crashed into his face, sending him crashing heavily to the ground, raising a curtain of smoke. Issei. I didn't expect that bastard to gain so much power. But it doesn't matter now, he said, landing on his feet. Surzich. Issei-kun. He asked, surprised. Issei. Don't get your hopes up. I'm against everyone here, I won't hesitate to beat them up, he said, looking at him coldly. Issei. Ha 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 ha, you really are a stupid brother coming out of the smoke. Maybe you are strong. But now you can't even compare to those useless ones, referring to the leaders. Issei just looked at him seriously. Michael. Issei-kun. We don't want to fight you, please back off. Issei. I came here for one thing. And I'm not leaving. Until I accomplish it. And taking advantage of the fact that this idiot is here, I'll kill two birds with one stone, smiling. Issei. Do you really think you'll stand up to me? Brother. He said mockingly. The chestnut-haired boy pulled out his step sword from a pocket dimension and positioned himself to attack. Azazel. Issei, last chance. You can go. Like Michael said, we don't want to fight you, he said seriously. Surzich. Are you sure about this, Issei-kun? Issei. Are you going to talk or attack? I don't care what you want, I'll beat the hell out of you, he said, already fed up with so much talk. Issei. You don't know how much I'll enjoy torturing you, Issei. Throwing himself at the aforementioned, who was waiting for him. Chapter 21. The fight had begun. Isaac was the one responsible for this. Issei waited, then with his sword blocked his brother's attack and kicked him in the stomach. He was knocked back a few feet. Issei. I kicked with almost all my strength and it only pushed him away tsk. This will be harder than I thought. Rick. Issei, I think I'll have to lend you my power, he said seriously. Issei. We'll use that as a last resort. For now, he thought, looking at the leaders, and then made his sword absorb Air Blizzard's sword. He shouted, launching a thrust towards them, causing a huge breeze of cutting air to head towards them. Seeing this, they ran away as fast as they could. But they weren't completely safe because when they landed, they noticed they had cuts all over their bodies. They weren't serious. But they were surprised. Isaac. Don't ignore me. Raising his hand, it will be your own technique that kills you. Having a small sphere in front of his hand, he hit it hard. Dragon shot from the blow, a huge torrent of dragonic energy shot out towards Issei. The aforementioned raised a wind barrier that protected him from the attack, but little by little it made him retreat. Issei. With effort, he managed to make the barrier hold, but it was somewhat weakened. Isaac was about to attack again, but a spear of light hit him, sending him flying. Seeing this, without hesitation, Issei went against Azazel, who blocked his thrust with a lightsaber. He moved away but had to dodge a devastating blow from Surzich. Rick. Issei, I think we should do what we agreed. Issei. No, I know I can. He said mentally, while blocking an attack from Michael with difficulty. Elsewhere. Office stood in front of Vali, Biku, and Arthur, who were lying on the ground. Vali. Why you? Why, he said with difficulty. Office. I won't kill you. But I also couldn't let you interfere. It's something Issei has to do. Arthur. It will kill everyone. Office. He's changed. But he won't. Ollie. How are you? So sure. Office. A part of the old Issei is there. I wouldn't know how to explain it. But I'm sure he won't, she said with her typical emotionless tone. In the fight. Everything was going from bad to worse for the brown-haired boy. Of all those fighting, he was the one at the greatest disadvantage. Little by little he was getting tired. When his brother and the leaders hit him, he felt like his bones were getting closer to breaking. Issei. Hey. He launched a cut at Surzich with all his strength. But he stopped it with his hand. Surrounded by power. Surzich. I'm sorry, Issei-kun. But you asked for it. Using a great amount of his strength and power, the sword couldn't withstand it and ended up breaking in half. The brunette saw this with his eyes wide open, but he couldn't think much because he received a punch in the face, courtesy of Isaac. He was sent flying very far, crashing and destroying a pile of debris. He fell and couldn't get up because of the pain. Issei. Shit, he said, trying to get up, but he couldn't even sit down. Rick. Issei, then. Issei, what? For what? Rick. Just do it, he said in a very serious tone. Issei. What does it matter? He concentrated. Subconscious. Issei was in a dark space in front of his version. Who looked at him seriously. Issei. I haven't been to this place for a long time, he said simply. Rick. Issei, do you know why I called you? You're not fooling me, he said seriously. Issei. Okay. I know, but I don't want to. Rick. I think hanging out with that girl and her sister made you pretty soft. Issei. Why do you say that? Rick. I'm supposed to say that when we were going to work, you had to be someone ruthless, who didn't care about anything or anyone, he said seriously and with some annoyance. Issei. But we still won't be able to function, and it may still be like that if we do. Rick. Dude. Remember, I'm you. Every emotion you have comes to me too. It's so clear that even I liked being with those two. Issei. I can't understand. Rick. Don't play dumb. And because you went soft, you were unconsciously holding back in that fight. You were supposed to kill them. Maybe your hatred towards them is still there, but now your intentions to kill have diminished too much, he said somewhat coldly. Issei tried to deny it, but remembering the moments he spent with Karen and Shiomi, the words didn't come out of his mouth. Rick. Look, maybe some of the old you has returned. But there's nothing we can do about it now. What matters now is winning this fight by any means necessary. Issei had his head down, feeling like a complete failure for not being able to take revenge on those who hurt him. But like Rick said, there was nothing he could do. Rick. Issei offering his hand. Issei. Rick, there must be another way. Rick. There isn't. Remember, that idiot Isaac can come along any moment and kill you seriously. The chestnut tree desperately tried to think of ways to win. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't. Issei. I don't want you to go. Rick. Issei. You're the only person who truly helped me. Even though you're just a part of me. I could really feel that I had a friend. Rick heard this. He was a little surprised. But he smiled soon after. Rick. Maybe we won't be able to talk anymore. But like I told you, once we do, you'll feel like I didn't leave, he said calmly and smiling. Besides, what you said it sounded a little gay. Issei. Pfffhahaha true, I got carried away laugh. Rick. Then still with his hand extended. Issei. Well. It was a pleasure meeting my other self shaking Rick's hand. Rick began to glow and little by little his body began to turn into a particular red light. Rick. My time has come giving a calm smile, so that finally his body already made of particles of light, these were implemented into Issei's body. Out of the subconscious. Issei was still unconscious and motionless on the ground. After a few seconds, he began to move his hands little by little. Then he made them into fists. Issei. Rick his eyes snapped open, but there was something different. One of his eyes was normal. But the other had an almost violet color. Already more awake, his gaze changed from one of confusion to one of anger. Chapter 22. The fight between the faction leaders against Isaac continued. A few minutes had passed since Issei was sent flying. So they just had to take care of their brother. Or so they thought. Surzich was exchanging blows with Isaac. Everyone was already more tired. This was taken advantage of by Isaac, who was not as tired as the leaders. And increasing his power a couple of times, he was taking the lead. The three of them knew they had to end this quickly, otherwise they would end up being killed. Azazel. Surzich, throw spheres of destructive power at him. That will distract him, while Michael and I combine a light attack, he ordered. Without any objection, the Redeed obeyed and began to throw a bunch of spheres of power of destruction at Isaac. Isaac was covering himself with ease, but little by little he was retreating and cracks were beginning to appear in his armor. Isaac. Shit. Trying to move forward. Azazel and Michael gathered all their magical power into a spear made of light. Having done it completely, both grabbed the spear. Michael. Now. With this shout, the Mayu jumped away. Immediately after that, with all their might, Michael and Azazel launched the spear-like attack. Isaac, who was barely recovering from the attacks, could not react before the powerful spear of light hit him full on. This caused a huge explosion to occur throughout what was once the capital of the underworld. Isaac had been sent flying far away, destroying many structures and debris. The leaders were weakened, although to a lesser extent, the attack had also affected them. Michael. Did we make it? With difficulty. Azazel. Damn. This I didn't think it would be so difficult standing up with difficulty. Surzich. We need to see if the other leaders are alive. Isaac left them badly injured. You said worriedly. Of the three of them, he was the one in the best condition. But that didn't mean he was in optimal condition. They were about to do what they had planned, but… Isaac. Where the hell are you going? He said as he landed behind her. His armor was somewhat torn, one of the parts being the helmet, from which one of his eyes could be seen bleeding. Isaac. This isn't over. He said in an angry and unhinged voice. That attack had really hurt him. And he was weakened by the same thing that made him quite angry. But having the three of them in worse condition than him made him see that it wasn't so bad to have received the spear. He was very angry, but at the same time happy to be able to take it out on the same people who attacked him. Then he would go for his brother. He would take revenge for the last time they saw each other. And with no one standing in his way, he would fulfill his mission. Sure, there were more factions, but they were only interested in themselves. So separately they wouldn't be a problem for him. The three leaders looked at the chestnut tree with surprise and helplessness. The only one who could fight at this moment was Surzich, but he wouldn't last long and his forces would end up falling. They were in serious trouble and they could do nothing. And even if they did something, the result would be the same. Isaac extended his hand towards them and a small sphere of magical power appeared next to his palm. Following that he drew back his arm and clenched his hand into a fist. With a smile that could not be seen through his helmet, he was preparing to hit the sphere that remained in the same place. The three of them already knew what was coming, so they just closed their eyes waiting for the worst. However, a fistful of white lightning struck Isaac's rib, sending him flying once again. The trio of leaders opened their eyes, seeing in surprise Issei who was being surrounded by white lightning and with his hair standing on end. Surzich. Issei, you. Issei. Don't confuse things, seeing it with his eyes, now each one of a different color, then I'll take care of you. Second of that, at an enormous speed, he headed towards where he had sent his brother flying. Michael. What was that? Azazel. His abilities grew too much surprised. Surzich. But why? Just a few moments ago he couldn't keep up with us, he said the same as Azazel. While that was happening, Isaac had crashed into a lot of debris. He was barely getting up and saw his side. That part of the armor was broken and his rib seemed to be too. Because a very sharp pain had suddenly attacked him in that part. He grabbed it to ease the pain a little, but it turned out to be the opposite. Which caused him to grimace and grunt in pain. Isaac. Be damned, I'm going to slaughter him. He thought as he stood up with difficulty. Boost 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 boost, he whispered as his power increased the more times he said the word. Before he could continue increasing his skills, he had to block a kick that was heading for his head. This caused him to step back a few feet, leaving his feet with a trail of sunken earth. When he saw who attacked him, he saw his brother looking at him very seriously. Issei. You would have stayed on the floor smiling mockingly. Issei. And missed the chance to beat you up again. Getting ready. This made Isaac very angry, and without saying anything else he went on the attack. Issei dodged and blocked it very easily. Even though Isaac's power increased further, he couldn't match it. Issei's speed was beyond his reach. Which made him angry and attacked more desperately. Issei. Where is that confident attitude you had? He said mockingly while dodging the blows. Issei. Damn you. He shouted angrily, and with much of his power he attacked him with a torrent of energy. Issei. Put his hand in front of him. Using the element of air, he created a barrier that seemed invisible. The attack collided with the barrier, leaving the chestnut intact. After finishing his attack, Isaac became even more enraged when he saw his brother unharmed. Isaac. Why don't you die? Losing his composure. Issei. Because you'll do it first, still with your hand extended. The wind began to gather in the palm of his hand and a transparent sphere was created. Issei. Air grenade, he said, then threw the sphere. Issei. Do you really think that with that pathetic? He didn't finish speaking because he had been overconfident and had let the sphere crash into him. In doing so, the sphere exploded with great intensity, damaging him greatly. But that wasn't the only thing that happened, as small transparent spheres came out of the explosion. And upon hitting the ground, each one exploded with greater intensity, damaging Isaac more. The dust cleared, revealing a chestnut tree that had more parts of its armor broken. Issei. Didn't you expect it? Smiling sideways. Isaac, not caring how weakened he was, went to attack. Issei. Seriously? Are you going to act like that? Arching an eyebrow, then sighing. Heading closer to his brother, Issei dodged a blow from Isaac by ducking. Issei. Impact. His fist absorbed wind and with great force he punched him in the stomach. The part of the armor that was hit was shattered and the older chestnut vomited a lot of blood. Following that, he grabbed his foot and threw it so that it collided with debris. Isaac could barely stand up and clutched his stomach. He had a hard time breathing. That blow had knocked all the air out of him. His vision became blurred. His legs were shaking like never before, suggesting that he was having trouble standing. Issei. Despite being a piece of shit, you have willpower. I'll give you that. His brother stares, but it won't do you any good seeing you dead. Suddenly the lightning surrounding him intensified and at a massive speed he appeared in front of Isaac. Issei. Electric impact, he said, then punched him in a vital spot, paralyzing Isaac's body. Following that, he gave him another punch with wind absorbed in the same place, causing very serious damage. Isaac fell to the ground without his armor and unable to move. His eyes were wide open and his eyes were dull. Blood and saliva flowed from his mouth, which then fell to the ground. As he was upside down, Issei flipped him over with his foot. Issei. You're pathetic. You steal my girls, my friends, my partner, the love of our parents, you make my life miserable for years, and in the end you're on the ground, he said indifferently. For Issei, his brother was just scum. Issei. But you know what? I'm still grateful. You made me see that I was expendable to them. Stomping on his chest hard, making the cracks of his ribs breaking resonate around the room. Isaac wanted to scream in pain, but he couldn't. His body wouldn't respond, no matter how hard he tried. Despair began to invade him, and he looked at his brother with fear. The aforementioned man turned his gaze to Isaac's left arm. The glove he once had was still there, but it had some cracks. He reached for the glove and touched it. After that, he closed his eyes. Seconds later, he opened them and saw that he was in a dark place. With a neutral look, he began to walk. He spent a few minutes like this until he saw a cage in which a red-haired woman was locked and chained. She saw it with great surprise. The chestnut stood in front of the cage. Issei. Hello, Ddraig. Ddraig. Issei, what are you doing here? Issei. Grabbing one of the bars. I guess it didn't turn out the way you thought, ignoring the woman's question. Ddraig. Issei. I lowering his head. Issei. Why me? Ddraig. Huh. Issei. Why did you choose me if you were going to stay with Isaac anyway? He said neutrally. Ddraig noticed the brown-haired boy's almost violet eye. Ddraig. Oh, Issei. Issei. Answers, making his voice deeper. Ddraig. Well. I made a huge mistake. Now you're. Issei. Yes, I also think it was a mistake of yours to have chosen me, he said, making Ddraig look at him with surprise. Ddraig. And no, I don't mean. Issei. And now that mistake is going to kill you. He grabbed another bar and slowly began to bend them to the sides, creating an opening through which he passed into the cage. Ddraig. What? Nervous. Issei. You abandoned me when I needed you most. You didn't even wait for me to die getting dangerously close to the redeed. The dragon looked scared and tried to get away. But the chains didn't allow her to move much. Issei grabbed her neck tightly and threw her to the ground. Issei. You didn't trust me either. Even though we were friends. And you chose a scumbag who left you like this. Ddraig was trying to say something, but since the brunette was holding her neck so tightly, she was short of breath to be able to do so. Issei. But if you love him so much, he'll catch up to you in a moment. He said, then raised his fist and punched him hard in the stomach. It was with such force that the dragon couldn't help but spit blood. But it didn't end there, as he started repeating it. Each blow was stronger than the last. Ddraig was desperately trying to do something, but the chains were preventing him. I could only cry from the pain, I couldn't even scream. The chestnut tree saw this and stopped. He stopped squeezing his neck. But Ddraig still couldn't breathe properly. So many blows had taken all the air out of him. Ddraig. I see. He tried to say something, but received a strong kick in the face, which made him hit the ground hard. Issei took the redeed's arm and broke it very easily. Ddraig watched this in shock. Suddenly, pain began to flutter. She tried to scream, but she still couldn't catch her breath. This only made her cry louder and writhe in pain. Her legs kicked and she gritted her teeth while small squeals were the only thing that could express her pain. The brunette would normally have at least a smile in these situations. But this time it wasn't like that. He just looked at the pained redeed with a stoic expression. But the memory of how Ddraig had chosen his brother so happily at that moment filled him with anger. So with a strong pull he tore off his arm. Blood flowed in torrents from where the dragon's arm once was. Ddraig, he tried to scream, but he still couldn't. Her eyes were wide open and more tears were running down her cheeks. Slowly turning his gaze to Issei, who at that moment threw his arm away like it was garbage. An immense fear, along with despair and pain, were the only things I could feel. The chestnut saw this with the same stoic expression. Ddraig began to writhe more as he stained the floor with more blood. He sighed and moved closer. He stepped on the wound hard, causing more pain to the redeed, you also making her unable to move. Without saying anything, he began to hit his face repeatedly. Just as he had done before, each blow was delivered with more force than the last. It went on like this for a while, even leaving Ddraig with his face all bruised and still with tears in his eyes. Ddraig. Issei, he pronounced his name with difficulty. In his eyes you could see that he was asking for mercy, for the brown-haired man to stop hurting him more. It wasn't just her body that hurt. She was also deeply hurt emotionally. Seeing one of the most important people to her do this to her broke her heart like glass. But what she had done was taking its toll on her now. Ddraig could see in the brunette's eyes that he was also hurt. But it was different from her feeling, since in Issei's case he had lost someone important. She knew she might be the only person who hadn't abandoned him. For her, Issei was now broken. And I wasn't so wrong. Issei was still hurt that his friend left. But I also understood that I had no choice. Issei gave a tired sigh. He thought he could continue, but Rick's farewell had affected him quite a bit and he wasn't in the mood he thought he would be. So once again, the brunette grabbed the redeed by the neck and lifted her up. The force with which he did it was so great that the chain that was on his other arm broke. Issei. Last words. He said expressionlessly. Ddraig. I am sorry, he said with difficulty. After that, without saying anything else, he squeezed her neck so tightly that a cracking sound was heard. Draig's limbs went limp and he hung in the air. He dropped Draig's limp body to the ground with a dry sound. Seconds after that, the body began to disintegrate in particular red light. Some entered Issei's body, who because he was distracted did not realize. Minutes later, the brown-haired boy closed his eyes and concentrated. When he opened them, he saw again the glove he had touched earlier. But this time he noticed that the gem on the glove, which should have been green, was now gray. Isaac. What did you do? He asked weakly. Issei. He looked at him coldly. I sent her to the same place you're going to. After saying that, he raised his fist and hit him hard in the chest, piercing him completely. Isaac. Arg. His eyes opened wide as he felt such a sudden attack of pain. He felt his brother's arm enter his chest, as if something was missing. His ribs had been crushed and part of his lung had come out through his back. Suddenly, his body began to cool down. From the point where he had been pierced, it spread throughout his body. His skin became too pale and he found it increasingly difficult to breathe. The last thing he could see were his brother's cold eyes. Until finally his eyes lost their shine and his breathing stopped. Issei, seeing this, quickly pulled out his bloody arm. He stood up and seriously looked in the direction where the faction leaders were, who were somewhat recovered. Chapter 23, End. Stupid, they felt really stupid. For a year now, they have been despising themselves like never before. What were they thinking? Was what they did worth it? Not at all. All for a little pleasure. And once they had it they couldn't stop. They certainly deserved everything they were getting. Getting pregnant by a bastard, and by the way, someone who wasn't as much of a man as everyone thought. Something that made them feel very disgusted about themselves. They didn't think about the consequences. And they forgot someone very important to them. Someone who, because of them, now had a questionable mentality. Someone they should have gotten pregnant with instead of their damn brother. They didn't think of anything. Now, even though they realized it, they wanted to get back with him, now thinking they could forget everything. They wanted to kill the guy with whom they betrayed the love of their life, they would definitely do it. And at all costs they would achieve both goals. Even if they had to kill other people. How wrong they were. After the underworld was attacked, the only thing they could do was stay in the Gremory nation. The family patriarchs had come out to help the Mayu, at least a little. But they ended up unconscious. Now the only one who could protect them was Sekiryuutei, who was alert to any attack. And while they did nothing, they reflected on the above. Clearly the mental state of Issei's ex-harem was not the best. They were aware of what they had done. But for some reason they couldn't, or maybe they didn't want to, accept it. They only wanted one thing at this moment. They wanted the only person who could comfort them. The only person they could truly love. The only person who could make them feel a unique warmth and who they had missed so much. The only person they wanted to have a child with. They wanted their Issei back. Unfortunately for them, that would never happen. At the same time this was happening, Issei walked up to a few meters away from the three leaders of the biblical factions. One nuisance has already been taken care of. It was time to get rid of the heavyweight. He didn't know if what Rick had told him before leaving was true. That I couldn't kill them. He had killed his own brother. Why wouldn't I do it with them? On the other hand, the three leaders saw the chestnut with some seriousness combined with surprise. They saw how he had killed Isaac, and now they could feel some of the Sekiryuutei's power in Issei, almost imperceptible. But it was there. They wondered what he had done. But if they asked him, they would not receive a satisfactory answer. Because now they knew what was coming. Issei had made it very clear to them. And if they managed to calm him down and talk to him, then they would do it. Issei. So getting ready, shall we start? The trio of leaders didn't want to do it. He wasn't in optimal condition and they would have to give it everything they had to subdue him. Without saying anything, the three prepared an attack with their respective domains. The brunette. He had previously deactivated his lightning, but now he made it appear again. His hair spiky, his eyes turning electric blue as white lightning surrounded him. No one moved after that. The wind blew, lifting some dust from the ground. Without further ado, in a quick movement the three launched their attacks. The brown-haired boy dodged them with a jump, seeing how the attacks together created a huge explosion. Azazel with his wings flew above Issei and with a magic circle attacked him with a light attack. Attack that was blocked by an invisible barrier. He then had to dodge an attack with the power of destruction, which caused him to leave the barrier and move away, causing the light attack to collide with the ground. This made an explosion and raised quite a bit of dust. Somewhat blinded by this, he barely dodged a spear of light that was headed for his stomach. Something that made him feel a chill. For a moment he had remembered Rainer and the time she killed him. But he didn't have any more time to think about that as he blocked a punch from Surzich. This created a shock wave that caused the dust to disperse rapidly. Having a better view, he kicked the Redeed in the face, sending him flying. The brown-haired boy began to breathe heavily. The initial fight had left him very weak. And the increased power and abilities he had received were causing his energy to drain faster. Plus, using his rays so much was starting to stiffen his muscles. Michael, with a lightsaber, tried to make several cuts on his body. Attempts that were not completely in vain, since he had managed to cut a little of his left leg, his right arm, and his chest, which began to bleed. Issei grimaced and jumped away. And yet he couldn't respect a bit when he received a punch in the face from Azazel, which sent him crashing into a lot of debris. With some difficulty he tried to recover, but a sphere with destructive power hit him in the back. It exploded, which sent him flying again. Quite synchronized, they started hitting him. Issei couldn't react in time, the attack stunned him more and more, so he couldn't counterattack. Issei. Shit, I can't, they won't stop attacking. He thought while receiving a punch in the face, then one in the stomach and another in the back. I don't like to admit it, but the power of that bucking dragon would be very useful right now and receive a boost. He thought with exasperation. But something happened after thinking about that. His body started to hurt a little more, but the attack seemed a little slower. Issei. What? Confused, he started dodging some attacks. But they were still hurting him a lot. Damn, I could really use a boost. he thought. But the attacks became slower in his sight. This left him even more confused. But after a few seconds he realized what was happening. Issei. No, it can't be possible, blocking some attacks with some difficulty, let's see boost. This made the attacks look even slower. I was quite surprised. Why did this happen? Why did he have this ability? He was supposed to have murdered the owner of this. But why did he have it? This could not be possible. Unless some of that dragon's essence has entered him. Well. Whatever it is, I'd take advantage of it. Quickly, he jumped. He opened his hand and pointed it at the leaders. The wind gathered in his palm, creating a transparent sphere. Issei, air grenade. He threw the sphere towards the three. And it had the same effect as with Isaac. An explosion along with other more powerful explosions were seen in the distance. The leaders had barely been able to cover themselves from that, but they still ended up somewhat damaged. The ray's dust blinded them, allowing them to see only each other. Surzich. Be alert to any noise nearby, he said seriously. Azazel. This kid is causing us a lot of trouble. At this rate, our energy will run out. Michael. That's why we need to end this quickly. He received a punch in the face, which buried him in the ground. Azazel. But what, receiving a kick in the stomach, which sent him flying. The Redeed was more attentive to stop any attack. But Issei was faster, and… Issei. Lightning strikes. He shouted, to give him hundreds of blows all over his body in just seconds impact. When he finished hitting him, he finished with the aforementioned attack. This scattered the dust and sent Surzich flying and colliding with a lot of debris. Issei. Damn, he said with difficulty. The increases along with his numbness from his rays were making him feel an enormous pain throughout his body. The trio of rulers rose with great difficulty. Especially Surzich, of all of them he was the one who took the most damage. The chestnut tree was already tired. His wounds were bleeding more than before. I knew these three wouldn't give up. So now I would go all out, even if it is on the verge of collapse. With the last effort, he made his rays intensify. And suddenly, he appeared in front of Azazel. He tried to give him a quick kick. Brave error. Crack. Issei grabbed his leg and with one blow broke it, bending it at an unnatural angle. Before he could even scream in pain, Issei punched him hard in the face, sending him flying a few meters. Issei. I think I should have let go of his leg before, he thought, seeing that he still had Azazel's leg, which had separated from his body at the moment he was sent flying. Well, it doesn't matter, throwing the limb as if it were garbage and staining the floor with blood. Without giving him time to wait, he went to Surzich and tried to hit him in the face. He put his hand in front of him, sure that he would stop him. Trush. The blow had been so strong that the Redeed's entire arm had turned into scattered flesh, blood and bones. And not only that, but the blow had fulfilled its objective and had impacted strongly on his face, which was buried in the ground. Michael saw this with great surprise. So much so that he didn't realize what was about to happen. Issei. Electric impact, the two lightning and air blows, had left him paralyzed. But it doesn't end there. Issei. Lightning strikes impact. He shouted already in front of the angel. The chestnut's fists absorbed as much wind as they could and surrounding them with lightning, he launched a rain of devastating blows. Blows that reached Michael, who could do nothing against Issei's speed. The blows were so strong, every bone that existed and would exist in the angel's body was completely crushed, his armor had been reduced to nothing because of that too. It only took a few seconds for Michael to become completely unrecognizable. He was covered in blood, his face had been disfigured, his wings were shattered, even some of his bones had pierced his skin and were now sticking out as if they had been driven into him. For Issei, Michael was a special case. It didn't seem fair to him that after what he did he didn't fall. So at least with this beating he gave her he wouldn't be able to avoid being bedridden for a long time. He was breathing heavily, his rays had disappeared. He had left the leaders unconscious. And even though they were now at his mercy, he still couldn't kill them. I didn't know why. Maybe it's because they made him feel like he belonged in the beginning. And that tiny bit of gratitude I had got in the way of this. Or maybe it's also because I simply didn't consider them worth it. Maybe with it they will never be the same again. Especially since most of his attacks were aimed at their crotches. And even if they come out of this alive, not everything in them would be. They would have a part fallen on them. Issei. Haha, he laughed thinking about that. With difficulty the place was getting away. He walked for a few minutes until he couldn't go on and fell unconscious. When he woke up, he found the sky almost red. He deduced it immediately, it was getting dark. Still in pain, he slowly got up. Since he was in the same place where he fainted, he assumed that the leaders were still unconscious. Issei. Turning to look in one direction. I still had something to do. He resumed his walk, now somewhat recovered somewhat. An hour passed and he ended up in front of a mansion known to him. He started to enter, but Issei, a voice called him. The brown-haired boy turned to the side and saw Bale. He stood up from the ground where he was sitting. He was wounded and only had the lower part of a golden armor, also known as Issei. TSK, he grimaced and prepared to attack. But the black-haired man raised his hands, signaling that he didn't want to fight. Something that confused the brunette. Issei, before you do anything I must tell you. The aforementioned became more confused but did not let his guard down. I'm not going to stop you, he said calmly. Now Issei was stunned. I had to assume that he knew I was coming to kill his cousin and her friends. And you would just let it go like that? Issei. What are you up to? He asked suspiciously. I don't plan anything. Issei. You know I came to kill your cousin, right? The self. Issei. And yet you still let me pass as if nothing happened. He asked, somewhat surprised, thinking that he doesn't care about his family member's life. Yes, you're not bad going to the world where he was. Come in if you want. You'll see the reason why I let you go. Surprised beyond belief, he obeyed and entered the mansion. He looked at him out of the corner of his eye to check if it wasn't a trap, but he only saw how the black-haired man sat back down on the ground. While inside, he walked around the Gremory mansion. There wasn't a single servant and some of the windows were broken, as were some things in the mansion. Which struck him as odd. Still, he continued searching all the rooms until only the one he once stayed in remained when he visited Ria's parents with her. Without thinking, he abruptly opened the door. And yes, there was what I was looking for. All the women who had betrayed him, abandoned him, and those he had ever fallen in love with were there. They all looked terrible. Disheveled, with dark circles under their eyes that indicated they had cried in dirty clothes, and the whole room smelled very bad. So much so that if he weren't used to the smell of corpses, he would have to cover his nose. But there was something that surprised him. The bellies of all, absolutely all of them, were swollen. He quickly understood why let him in just like that. On the other hand, the girls looked at the brown-haired boy with great surprise. Surprise that turned into an insatiable desire. Just seeing him was enough, they didn't even notice that he had wounds all over his body. Rias. Issei, she said, getting up with difficulty, but Issei raised his hand as a signal to stop. Issei. Don't get up, you'll hurt him, he said seriously, and you two don't move either, he said, looking at the others, who were about to throw themselves at him. Akeno. Issei-kun. Knows it. Issei. Don't talk, I see that you didn't see her coming, he said the last bit with some mockery. He wasn't cold-blooded enough to kill a pregnant woman. Even if they were the ones who betrayed him. But at least he could poke fun a little. Asia. Issei-san called him in a weak voice. Issei. I didn't imagine you like this, seeing her unfazed. Which saddened her even more. Arena. Issei-kun. It's good that you're here, trying to get closer, but lost her balance. The chestnut tree in a quick movement approached her and caught her so that she would not fall to the ground. Maybe this is what Rick was referring to. He had softened before he would have killed them without hesitation. But instead, he was now helping one of them from falling. But it wasn't for her, but for the life they had inside. He knew he wasn't to blame for what his mother had done. Arena was surprised by this. Normally he would be very happy if it weren't for the fact that he realized the state of his love interest. And not only them, everyone in the room had done it. Zenobia. Issei, what happened to you? Worried beyond belief. Ross. This isn't right. Who was the bastard who did this to you? He said with concern and anger. Rias. Asia, heal Issei now, she said, looking at the aforementioned, who nodded. Issei. Don't bother trying to heal me, gently placing Arena on the ground. I'm leaving, he said, heading to the door. Kaneko. Senpai is leaving? She asked, very surprised. Hiroka. But you just arrived, she said, very exasperated. Rias. Issei-kun, please don't go. She said while taking him by the arm. You're very sick, and lowering her head. Issei. And. Looking at her expressionless. Rias. We miss you, she said with her head down. The brown-haired boy looked at her for a few seconds, then looked at the others. Issei. What makes you think there's even the slightest chance that I'd want to come back with you? He asked seriously, with a hint of contempt in his voice. Rias. We can get rid of them and start over, she said pleadingly. Issei got very upset with that comment. His parents had neglected him for years, preferring his brother. He learned to be independent at a young age. His mother more than his father. I almost never paid attention to him. And if he did, it was to scold him for being naughty. Which is what Isaac was actually doing. And hearing that from someone who was going to have a baby made his blood boil. Taz. Issei had slapped the redeed. I wanted to punch him, but I knew it wasn't convenient. Everyone in the room was surprised. Especially Rias. She touched the cheek where she was hit. Rias. Why? on the verge of tears. Issei. Why are you saying stupid things in the first place? He said, very annoyed. Do you want to get rid of them? Keep in mind that they are not to blame for anything. Okay. Looking at Rias coldly, it would be better if you took care of them and raised them well. Otherwise they will end up being like their father's bastard, releasing himself from the Reti's grip. Issei. If I find out that they did something bad to you, I'm really going to kill you. With that last thing said, he crossed the door and walked away, leaving the women in the room shocked. He left the nation and realized that it was almost night. He also noticed that Sekiryuutei was still sitting on the ground. She approached him, who noticed her presence. Sekiryuutei. And how did it go? Without seeing him. Issei. Strange. I never imagined you were pregnant, he said with a small smile. Sekiryuutei. Well, I didn't know if I would really forgive their lives, I just believed in you, smiling equally. Issei. Well, thanks for trusting me, he said, then sat next to the demon. They both remained silent, watching as the sky finally darkened. Sekiryuutei. And what will you do now? He asked curiously. Issei. Well. Office must take me to the human world. And then I'll return with some friends. After a while, of course. Sekiryuutei. I see, I guess you can rest easy now. After all, I think this made it clear that you don't want to be bothered. Issei. Yes, sighing. Can you do me a favor? Sekiryuutei. Which one? He asked. Issei. Take care of the babies they'll have. It's not their fault what their parents did. I don't want them to grow up like I did, you know, and I'm sure you don't either. Seeing him. Sekiryuutei. My father never loved me. Because I couldn't use the power of destruction. My mother was bedridden for quite some time. I guess I'll be able to take care of them and raise them like my father never did. They were silent again for a few minutes. The silence was comfortable and calm. Until a magic circle appeared in front of him, from which a gothic loli came out. The office. I see that you're done, she said when she saw Issei calmer. Issei. Yes. I'm done. Or well, almost. The office, Kasi. Issei. Before I go back to Karen and Shiomi's. I want to go see someone. Standing up. The girl said nothing more and watched as the brown-haired boy stood next to her. He saw Sekiryuutei for one last time. Issei. I'll leave it to you, smiling. Sekiryuutei. Damage done. They both bumped their fists one last time. Before the loli created a magic circle and both disappeared, leaving Sekiryuutei with his fist extended. 6 months later. Karen and Shiomi were leaving a supermarket in Tokyo. Karen had gotten a job as a waitress days after Issei left. They could stay well. Shiomi had been put in a school after a year of not being able to go. They walked to the apartment that Issei had rented for them. They missed him, of course, but they clung to the promise Issei had made to them. They weren't sure when he would return, but they were sure he would. Shiomi. Ni-chan, I've already completed my homework today. Could you buy me what I asked for? She asked cheerfully. Karen. I'll see. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow, she said with a smile, making her pout. Shiomi. You said you would do it today, somewhat annoyed. Karen. Yes, but we have to get home quickly. It's starting to get cold. Don't catch a cold. Shiomi. By the way, when will Issei Nai-chan return? She asked curiously. Karen remained silent for a few seconds, thinking carefully about his words. Karen. I don't know. But he promised he'd come back, didn't he? Looking at her with a smile. But inside I wasn't very sure. 6 months had passed and they heard nothing from him. There were times when she doubted, but in the end she ended up having hope that he would return to them. Issei, my superior Zumbayan. The two sisters were startled and turned around. Great was his surprise to see Issei, who had a smile and one of his eyes was almost violet. Karen. Issei? She asked shocked. Issei. Who else? He said, seeing how they started to tremble. So he opened his arms to his sides and immediately they both ran to hug him. They had radiant smiles, the person they considered a brother had returned. Shiomi. Issei Nai-chan is back. She shouted happily. Karen. Issei, where have you been? Separating and looking at him with a smile. Issei scratching his neck. Well, huh. Honey. A voice was heard behind them, so they turned around and saw a very beautiful black-haired woman with a swollen belly. Issei. Oh, are you done with yours? Looking at her with a smile. I'm here for a reason, you little idiot, she said as she approached the brunette and gave him a quick kiss on the lips. The two sisters were stunned to see what had happened. Issei noticed this, so he smiled wider. Issei. Girls, she is Yoon and she is my. Yoon. I'm this little idiot's girlfriend, she said, grabbing his hand. You must be Karen and Shiomi, right? They both nodded, still surprised. Karen. Cubic queuing. Issei. Well, after what happened. It happened, so I went to see her. Yoon. And now we are planning to get married, she said with a more radiant smile. Issei. You decided it, he whispered. Yoon. We decided, he said with an aura of death. Issei. Well, looking away. The sisters were silent for a few seconds until they finally processed it. Perrin. Do you want to come to our apartment? She asked, smiling at them. Issei and Yoon looked at each other for a moment and then felt. Issei, Yoon. No, of course, they said at the same time. Yoon hit Issei hard on the head, almost burying him in the ground. Issei. Ooh. Rubbing his head. Oh, you can't stand a joke. Seconds later everyone laughed with good humor and went to the apartment. And? Issei. What? It's over. Issei. Are you still here? Don't worry, there's nothing to read here. Issei. Well, if you want me so much, I should have said something more. I admit, you caught me and what I have to tell you is. Issei. Whoever reads it is a pain. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.